Imagine a prison, hidden in the very heart of darkness. There is no laughter here, no light, and even time itself has stopped. It is here, according to legends, that for thousands of years, those who dare to challenge God himself have suffered. Today we will open the forbidden pages of apocryphal texts and dive into the eerie story of the fallen angels, the Watchers. Who were they? Traitors to humanity, or liberators who brought us knowledge? What is Dudiel, the darkest of prisons, of which official religions speak little? Prepare for a journey into the depths of ancient mysticism, where every answer only raises new questions. But before we plunge into this story, welcome to the Dark Storyteller channel. Before drifting into this dream, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? The ancient secret of the fallen angels. This is not just a story about celestial betrayal. It is a tale of how, for the first time, humanity received forbidden knowledge that has followed us through the ages. In many texts, deemed heretical by the Church, there is a legend of an ancient covenant between heavenly beings and mortals. At the center of this legend are the Watchers. According to the Book of Enoch, found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, these angels were sent to earth to observe humanity, but instead of remaining distant, they broke divine law. They were led by Semjaza, a mighty and renowned archangel, described in the Apocrypha as the first to succumb to the burden of temptation. The Watchers desired not only knowledge, but also the pleasures of the flesh, so they descended to earth and took mortal women as wives. From these unions were born the Nephilim, giants who became a curse for mankind. Yet the most terrifying part was not that. The Watchers brought with them knowledge of metallurgy, weapon making, magic, healing arts, and even taught humans to write and read the stars. It would seem that this knowledge sparked the first civilizations. Archaeologists discovered that the cultures of Sumer and Akkad changed dramatically around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. People created laws, wrote the first cuneiform tablets, and learned to build ziggurats, massive step temples. In esoteric circles, it is believed that this is the mark left by the Watchers, but humanity paid a high price for these gifts. The Nephilim, according to the Book of Enoch, turned into tyrants who destroyed settlements and waged wars. Humans became not only stronger, but more cruel. The knowledge of swords and poisons brought by the Watchers quickly turned against humanity itself. God, according to legend, sent the archangel Michael to gather the Grigori and imprison them in the darkest place in creation, Dudiel. This place is described in the Apocrypha as a black pit beyond the edges of the world. The Book of Enoch says he cast them into darkness, into the abyss, and eternal chains bound them. The paradox is that there is no mention of Dudiel in the canonical Bible, but this topos survived in many ancient texts. Some esoteric researchers suggest that Dudiel is not so much a metaphysical dungeon as a parallel dimension, or even a real part of our world, hidden behind the veil of reality. Others believe that Dudiel is located in the abyss of space, or deep within the earth. There are theories connecting Dudiel with the Sumerian Kur, the underworld, where the souls of sinners were sent. Yet there are disturbing accounts. In 1947, in the Qumran region, a scroll was found that, in addition to the Book of Enoch, contained strange symbols resembling ritual diagrams. They looked like seals that could be connected to the imprisonment of the Grigori. Some occultists claim these were keys to Dudiel, knowledge that must remain sealed. Another mystery is the mention of Nephilim in other cultures. For example, in Norse sagas, there are Jotnar, giants hostile to gods and men. In Mesopotamia, Anunnaki, who could have been gods or descendants of the Watchers. In South America, there are Viracocha, light-haired giants who came from beyond the sea. These coincidences suggest that the story of the Grigori may have spread much further than we imagine. Even more disturbing is the question what happened to their children, the Nephilim. According to legend, during the flood, God destroyed them, along with the sinful people, but some apocrypha hint that the souls of these beings still roam the world as spirits or demons. The Book of Jubilees says, "The spirits of the giants remained on earth, to torment and tempt mankind." Perhaps that is why many cultures mention spirits who bring knowledge in exchange for something terrible. Modern demonologists see a line that leads to descriptions of jinns in Islam, or demons of Goetic magic. And is this why we still encounter the motif of teachers from other worlds in myths? Were the Watchers cursed or saviors, and do they still await in their prison, watching humanity from beyond the veil of darkness? The story of the Watchers stands as one of the oldest, most enigmatic myths woven into the fabric of the Judeo-Christian tradition. It is not just a tale of rebellion, but a blueprint for understanding the perpetual conflict between divine order and the chaos that festers when forbidden knowledge is unleashed. In these ancient narratives, the Watchers are more than just celestial beings. They are the archetype of defiance itself, the primordial embodiment of a choice that echoes through every subsequent myth of rebellion. According to the apocryphal Book of Enoch, long before the flood, before Moses climbed Sinai, or the Tower of Babel pierced the heavens, the Watchers descended. They were meant to be guardians, sentinels of balance, watching silently from the firmament. Yet they became the first to question, the first to challenge. Their story, buried within dusty scrolls and esoteric teachings, is older than the myths of Lucifer, older even than the serpent's whisper in Eden. Some scholars argue that the fall of the Watchers may have served as the prototype for later stories of angelic rebellion, influencing the depiction of Satan and his legions. The Book of Enoch was considered canonical by early Jewish sects, and even by some of the early Christian fathers such as Tertullian. Its presence among the Dead Sea Scrolls suggests that the Qumran community regarded this tale with utmost seriousness, treating it not merely as allegory, but as revelation. Yet it vanished from the mainstream biblical canon, buried under theological debates, while fragments of it continued to haunt religious mysticism for centuries. The narrative reveals how Semjaza and the other leaders of the Watchers, burning with forbidden desire and curiosity, shattered the celestial law. Their transgression was not merely a matter of lust, but of empowerment. They handed humanity the keys to hidden sciences, blurring the boundary between the mortal and the divine. In doing so, they crossed an irreversible threshold, setting in motion an ancient pattern, that of humanity constantly reaching beyond the limits imposed by heaven, defying divine decree for the allure of the unknown. The fall of the Watchers encapsulates the philosophical dilemma that runs like a current through the whole of human history, the battle between knowledge and obedience. Were the Watchers saviors who accelerated human development, bringing civilization from darkness into light, or were they corruptors, seducing humanity into pride, violence, and hubris? The duality of this myth reverberates in later religious and philosophical teachings. In Christian theology, their tale foreshadows the fall of Satan and the angels who followed him, cast from heaven into the abyss. The rebellion of the Watchers is thus the primordial crack in the divine order, the precursor to later cosmic wars between heaven and hell. Their punishment, imprisonment in Dudael, mirrors the Christian concept of hell as a prison for those who defy God's will. Some interpretations even suggest that these beings, now trapped beyond the veil of time, still influence humanity, acting as the architects of temptation and spiritual decay. The theme of divine rebellion has parallels in other mythologies as well. The Greek tale of Prometheus, who defied Zeus by gifting fire, knowledge, to mankind, shares eerie similarities. Prometheus, like the Watchers, was punished for elevating humanity beyond its natural state. In Mesopotamian mythology, the god Enki defies the assembly of gods to bring wisdom and civilization to humans. These repeated motifs suggest that the story of the Watchers taps into a universal archetype, the dangerous yet seductive allure of enlightenment and the price it demands. In the Zohar, a foundational text of Kabbalistic mysticism, there are veiled references to angels who fell for the love of mortal women, hinting at suppressed echoes of the Watchers myth. Even in Islamic tradition, there are stories of Harut and Marut, two angels who fell from grace after succumbing to earthly temptations, later chained in a well beneath Babylon. The resemblance to the imprisonment of the Watchers is striking, suggesting that this myth transcends a single culture, reappearing across different faiths and epochs. Yet, the true horror of the Watchers' story lies not just in their fall but in what they unleashed. The Nephilim, their monstrous offspring, symbolize the corruption of divine order on earth. These giants, described as violent and unruly, are presented as agents of chaos, devouring the world left in their wake. Some early Christian sects believed that these beings were responsible for much of the wickedness that led to the Great Flood, a cosmic reset to purge the world of this tainted bloodline. Historical records and archaeological anomalies have long fueled speculation about the Nephilim. Megalithic structures, such as the Cyclopean walls of Baalbek or the immense stone heads of Easter Island, have been cited in fringe theories as potential remnants of a forgotten race of giants. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, there were sensationalized reports, later debunked, of giant humanoid skeletons, allegedly unearthed in North America. While mainstream archaeology dismisses these as hoaxes or misinterpretations, the persistence of such legends underscores the deep psychological grip of the Watchers myth. Furthermore, the narrative of the Watchers continues to influence modern esotericism and conspiracy theories. From theories of ancient astronauts who gifted humanity advanced technology, to occult beliefs about secret societies preserving forbidden knowledge, the specter of the Watchers looms large. Some occult traditions even equate the Watchers with the Grigori, a class of spirits who still watch over and subtly manipulate humanity from behind the scenes. But perhaps the most chilling implication is the suggestion that the Watchers' punishment was not the end of their influence. While chained in Dudale, some traditions suggest that they whisper across the dimensions, imparting fragments of their forbidden wisdom to those reckless enough to seek it. Ritualistic magic, according to certain grimoires, offers veiled instructions to commune with these fallen entities, promising power in exchange for loyalty or madness. In Gnostic writings, there is a similar theme of hidden knowledge, locked away from humanity by jealous gods. The Watchers' rebellion then takes on a subversive light, portraying them as bringers of gnosis, divine insight, opposed by oppressive heavenly rulers. This echoes the dualism found in sects like the Cathars, who believed the material world itself was a prison crafted by a corrupt demiurge. What remains constant, whether the Watchers are seen as villains or tragic heroes, is the gravity of their choice. They dared to step beyond the role assigned to them, to empower humanity, and in doing so, severed themselves from the divine order. This eternal rift between heaven and earth, law and defiance, continues to shape religious thought, literature, and our cultural understanding of the price of forbidden knowledge. Perhaps that is why the story of the Watchers has never truly died. It resurfaces again and again, whispered in shadows, encoded in myths, and hidden within ancient tomes. It is a tale older than empires, older than scripture itself, a warning and a temptation in equal measure. Shall we now move deeper into this forbidden history, where we will uncover the terrifying nature of Dudale itself, the prison from which no light escapes? They were never meant to touch the earth. The Watchers, 200 beings of unimaginable radiance and power, descended from the heavens under a singular mandate: to observe, but never to intervene. Their gaze was meant to be cold, impartial, unfeeling. They were stationed along the boundaries of the mortal world, their luminous eyes scanning the unfolding human story from above, tasked with ensuring that divine order remained intact. But as countless generations of humans struggled, built, loved, and died beneath them, the Watchers grew restless. According to the Book of Enoch and fragments of other apocryphal writings, the Watchers are known as the Grigori, meaning those who watch, or the awake ones. In ancient Hebrew, they were called Hiful, Iful, 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 Eerie, guardians, stationed along the firmament to safeguard the purity of creation, while angels like Gabriel or Michael served as direct agents of the divine will. The Watchers were to remain silent sentinels, passive recorders of human progress. Their very detachment was designed to preserve the sanctity of heaven's law. The celestial were never to contaminate the mortal. But somewhere, in the silent millennia of observation, a dangerous seed took root, a curiosity that would metastasize into obsession. The Watchers began to see more than mere mortal struggle. They saw beauty, fragility, the burning spark of creativity and longing in human hearts. And most damning of all, they felt sympathy. The ancient texts list them by name: Semjaza, Arakiba, Ramiel, Kokabeel, Tamiel, and others, each bearing dominion over aspects of knowledge and the cosmos. Semjaza, the chief among them, was said to possess authority that rivaled even the archangels, and it was he who would ultimately rally the 200 to a fateful pact. Gathered at Mount Hermon, towering above the Levant, they bound themselves by oath and curse. None would turn back once the descent began. Historical records and traditions surrounding Mount Hermon lend this detail an unsettling weight. Known to some early cultures as a sacred boundary between worlds, Mount Hermon would later become steeped in esoteric lore. The ancients believed it to be a portal between heaven and earth, a cosmic threshold where the Watchers first touched soil and made their dire vow. As they stepped onto the mortal plane, these angels took on forms both radiant and terrifying. Some traditions describe them as towering beings cloaked in shimmering light, while others speak of monstrous wings and faces too radiant for mortals to behold. Yet, as the Watchers lived among humanity, their forms slowly changed. Their countenances softened, their gazes grew warmer, their detachment eroded. It was not long before fascination blossomed into desire. The daughters of men, vulnerable, mortal and ephemeral, ignited something primal within these Watchers of stars. They longed to know, to touch, to feel as humans did. Semjaza, knowing the weight of their decision, is said to have trembled before taking the first step into defiance. And yet, he did. One by one, the Watchers broke their heavenly oath. They took human women as consorts and bore offspring, creatures neither fully angelic nor fully mortal. These Nephilim, as they were later called, were beings of terrible power and insatiable hunger, towering giants, who crushed kingdoms beneath their feet and drank rivers dry. But what doomed humanity even further was the knowledge the Watchers began to share. Azazel taught men to forge swords and knives, shields and breastplates, introducing the art of war. Kokabeel revealed the secrets of the stars, teaching astrology and celestial divination. Tamiel imparted hidden wisdom of sorcery and herbs, unlocking the gates of the natural and supernatural worlds. The Grigori, once heavenly sentinels, had become something far darker, catalysts of forbidden evolution. Civilization advanced at a pace both exhilarating and horrifying. What had once been slow, sacred growth became a reckless surge into chaos. Metallurgy, enchantments, forbidden sciences, humanity's hands were suddenly armed with tools of gods. The chaos that ensued marked one of the earliest apocalyptic moments in sacred history. Blood flowed across valleys and mountain tops. The Nephilim devoured crops, livestock, and eventually men. The cries of the oppressed reached even the highest heavens, and the celestial order was shaken. Yet, strangely, not all narratives condemn the Watchers. Some Gnostic traditions and occult sects cast them as tragic liberators, beings who risked eternal damnation to awaken humanity from ignorance. To these esoteric schools, the Watchers were not betrayers but the first Prometheans, the bringers of fire, who were punished for daring to uplift mankind. Fascinatingly, the Zohar, a foundational text of Jewish Kabbalah, hints at spirits known as those who watch, suggesting fragments of this ancient tale still echo within mystical thought. Even medieval grimoires, like the Ars Goetia, contain references to spirits with names strikingly similar to the Watchers, implying that their influence did not end with their imprisonment. The 200 were eventually chained and cast into Dudil, a prison described as a desolate abyss, surrounded by jagged rocks and cursed winds. According to Enoch, iron mountains and rivers of molten fire sealed their fate. Yet, the Watchers' legacy remained, etched into the DNA of humanity's progress and violence alike. In the 20th century, occultists like Aleister Crowley would reinterpret the myth of the Watchers through the lens of dilemma, emphasizing the idea that forbidden knowledge and transgression were necessary for spiritual ascent. Crowley's writings often danced around the idea of angelic rebellion as a metaphor for personal enlightenment, echoing the Watchers' fateful defiance. To this day, scholars debate whether the Watchers' tale is a cautionary parable about the dangers of unrestrained ambition, or a veiled history of beings who intervened to guide early mankind. Some conspiracy theorists draw lines between the Watchers and the so-called ancient astronaut theory, suggesting extraterrestrial intervention masked within religious allegory. And yet, one question remains unanswered. Did the Watchers truly fall, or did they merely step outside the rigid boundaries imposed upon them? Were they victims of divine injustice, or architects of their own ruin? Their story is not just a footnote in ancient scripture, it is the genesis of a cosmic fracture between obedience and curiosity, between divine order and mortal defiance. The Watchers stand eternally, as the first to rebel, the first to gift mankind the terrible light of forbidden wisdom, and the first to pay the price. Shall we descend further into this abyss and unveil the mysteries of Dudil, the eternal prison that holds these ancient beings even now? Among the countless names whispered through the shadows of ancient texts, 3 stand out as the heart of this forgotten rebellion: Semyaza, Azaz, and the Nephilim. Together, they form a trinity of defiance, knowledge, and corruption, an unholy triangle that reshaped the course of humanity and the fate of the Watchers themselves. Semyaza, whose name translates to infamous rebellion, or he who sees the name, was no ordinary angel. Among the Watchers, he was their undisputed leader, the one who bore the weight of the oath sworn upon the sacred ground of Mount Hermon. According to the Book of Enoch, Semyaza alone hesitated before binding his fate to the doomed pact. He understood the cost of their descent, the celestial wrath that would follow. Yet when he saw the fervor in the eyes of his brethren and the irresistible pull of forbidden desire, he too fell. Legends describe Semyaza as the embodiment of wisdom and might, his very presence radiant like a burning star. Yet it was his hunger to bridge the gap between heaven and earth, between knowledge and flesh, that sealed his fate. In some esoteric traditions, Semyaza is not seen as merely a rebel, but as a tragic figure, a bearer of light, who chose to share what the divine had withheld. His name would echo in secret societies and occult texts, whispered in rituals that sought to unlock the mysteries he once revealed. Alongside him stood Azaz, the Watcher, whose transgressions surpassed even those of Semyaza in the eyes of the heavens. Azazil's name, meaning scapegoat, or strength of God, would later be immortalized in Levitical law, where a goat for Azazel was cast into the wilderness as atonement for the sins of Israel. But the roots of this symbolism stretch far deeper into pre-biblical law. Azazel was the master of forbidden knowledge, the one who handed humanity the weapons of gods. He taught men to craft swords and daggers, to temper iron and bronze into instruments of death. He revealed the art of war, transforming humanity from nomadic tribes into warriors capable of empire building and bloodshed. To women, he taught the secrets of adornment, the use of cosmetics, jewelry, and enchantments to captivate and manipulate. In the ancient world, such knowledge was seen as a gateway to vanity, seduction, and spiritual downfall. In the fragmented Dead Sea Scrolls, Azazel is portrayed as the chief of the Watchers, the corrupter of mankind, whose teachings brought chaos to the world. Rabbinical texts hint that his influence spread long after his imprisonment, whispering from the abyss, infecting human hearts with pride and violence. Some occult traditions associate Azazel with the archetype of the dark teacher, akin to the serpent in Eden, a being who offers knowledge with a venomous sting. And then there were the Nephilim, born of the unions between the Watchers and mortal women. They were giants in both stature and hunger. The book of Genesis mentions them cryptically. There were giants in the earth in those days, mighty men of renown. But the apocryphal writings paint a darker portrait. The Nephilim towered over humanity, ravenous and cruel. They devoured livestock, crops, and eventually turned to cannibalism. Their very presence unbalanced creation. Archaeological and folkloric echoes of the Nephilim persist globally. The Anakim of Canaanite myth, the Jotnar of Norse legends, and the Titans of Greek lore all bear similarities to the Nephilim. In Mesopotamian texts, the Apkallu, half-human, half-divine beings, served as intermediaries between gods and men. Some scholars speculate that these disparate traditions could stem from a shared proto-myth, rooted in mankind's collective memory of beings like the Nephilim. Even in the ruins of ancient structures, such as Baalbek's Cyclopean stones, or the massive walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, theorists have speculated about the involvement of giants or divine entities in their construction. While mainstream archaeology offers grounded explanations, the persistent motif of giants building wonders across the world feeds into the lore of the Nephilim as architects of forgotten ages. But beyond the physicality of their size, the Nephilim represented something far more insidious: the contamination of the human soul. They were born of divine rebellion, yet grounded in mortal flesh, and their existence blurred the sacred boundary between the celestial and the profane. Their legacy was not just war and ruin, but a distortion of human destiny itself. The havoc unleashed by Semyaza, Azazel, and the Nephilim did not go unnoticed. According to the apocryphal texts, the archangels Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel ascended before the throne of the Most High, pleading for intervention. Heaven's silence shattered as divine judgment was decreed. Raphael was sent to bind Azazel and cast him into a desert abyss, covering him with jagged stones until the day of judgment. Michael, meanwhile, led the celestial host against the Nephilim and the rebellious Watchers. It is said that the very earth groaned beneath the battles that followed. Floods, earthquakes, and fire swept across the lands. The giants were felled by heavenly swords and cast into the shadows, while Semyaza and the remaining Watchers were bound in Dudael, a prison beyond mortal comprehension. Their cries of lamentation still echo through the annals of esotericism. Yet, even in chains, Semyaza's influence lingered. The Kabbalistic tradition speaks of the Qliphoth, shells or husks of divine light corrupted, and left behind after the fall of powerful beings. Some occultists believe that the Watchers became part of these shells, disembodied echoes that still haunt the fringes of spiritual reality. In Islamic lore, Azazel's narrative morphed, becoming associated with Iblis, the jinn who refused to bow to Adam. While not directly equated, some traditions view Azazel as a forerunner to Iblis, embodying the same defiant spark against divine authority. The echoes of the Nephilim, too, endure in obscure places. The apocryphal Book of Giants, found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, expands upon their story, detailing visions of doom and fragmentation within the Nephilim ranks as the divine punishment approached. Dreams of collapse, blood, and celestial wrath tormented them, prophecies they were powerless to avert. In modern times, the mythos of Semyaza, Azazel, and the Nephilim bleeds into pop culture, occult traditions, and conspiracy theories. From clandestine organizations claiming to possess ancient knowledge, to esoteric orders venerating these figures as harbingers of forbidden wisdom, their legacy thrives in the liminal spaces between history and legend. But perhaps the most disturbing element of this tale is the lingering question: if Semyaza and his brethren could fall once, what prevents others from following? Have we, in some forgotten epoch, already heard the whispers of new watchers, or are we merely living the aftershocks of that first rebellion? As the veil continues to thin between myth and reality, and as humanity edges closer to mastering technologies that echo the forbidden arts of the past, one must wonder if we are not, like the Watchers, standing at the precipice of a choice with cosmic consequences. Shall we now journey deeper into the abyss and explore Dudale itself, the forsaken prison, where ancient cries still reverberate through realms unseen?
Their wings once shimmered with the brilliance of heaven, their voices resonated with the harmony of the spheres, but no radiance could protect them from the storm brewing within their hearts. The Watchers, sent as impartial sentinels to silently observe the growth of humanity, stood upon the edge of creation and gazed too long into the world of mortals. It began subtly, a flicker of curiosity that turned to longing, and finally erupted into desire. The forbidden urge to partake in mortal existence became unbearable. In the stillness of the high places where they kept watch, the Watchers made a choice that would ripple through eternity. It was Semjaza, the towering leader, who felt the burden of the choice most acutely. He knew what awaited them if they defied the heavenly edict, but the collective yearning of the 200 Watchers could not be quelled. On the slopes of Mount Hermon, one of the oldest and most mysterious mountain ranges in the world, they forged a pact under the stars. Bound by an oath of mutual damnation, they vowed that none would turn back, that all would descend together and share equally in the consequence of their rebellion. Mount Hermon itself would later gain an infamous reputation in ancient lore. In Phoenician myths, it was called the Mountain of the Divine Assembly. Ancient Canaanite inscriptions found in the region whisper of rituals performed in its shadow, sacrifices to gods unseen. To this day, some researchers claim that the mountain holds occult significance, a site where heaven and earth once touched. The descent was not marked by thunder or fury. It was quiet, a fall in silence, wings folding against mortal air. The Watchers emerged among humanity, their celestial forms cloaked in human likeness, but their eyes still burning with the fires of the upper realms. It was then that they saw her, the daughters of men, fragile, ephemeral, and luminous in ways no heavenly being could have predicted. The mortal women, unaware of the weight of the gazes upon them, became the objects of an ancient and catastrophic affection. The texts describe how the Watchers took mortal women as wives, entering into unions that defied not just law, but the very structure of creation. The act itself was seen as a blasphemy, an unnatural fusion between the eternal and the finite. From these forbidden marriages were born the Nephilim, hybrid beings, towering in stature, imbued with supernatural strength and insatiable hunger. The world had never known such creatures before, and it would never be the same after. Yet the corruption ran deeper than mere bloodlines. The Watchers, in their desire to bestow gifts upon their new families, began to share their celestial knowledge. Semjaza revealed enchantments and incantations, hidden words of power that could manipulate reality itself. Azazel, ever the craftsman of destruction, taught men how to fashion swords and breastplates, forging from iron and bronze tools of war that humanity had never dreamed of. Others taught astrology, the movement of stars, and the secrets hidden in their patterns. The veil between heaven and earth grew thinner with every secret shared. Humanity, once stumbling in the dark of ignorance, suddenly burned with the light of dangerous wisdom. But as with all forbidden knowledge, the gifts became a curse. War erupted, fueled by newfound weapons and occult knowledge. The Nephilim, these monstrous children of heaven and earth, spread terror and famine, devouring resources and slaughtering indiscriminately. The earth itself cried out. Ancient traditions from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Canaan describe floods, droughts, and cataclysms that mirror this apocalyptic upheaval. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of abrupt societal collapses in the ancient Near East around 2300 BCE, the so-called 4.2 kilo-year event that devastated early civilizations with droughts and famines. Some have linked this historical mystery to the lingering echoes of such ancient myths. The Book of Enoch portrays the heavenly hosts watching in horror as the balance of creation unraveled. Finally, the outcry reached the throne of the Most High. The divine response was swift and absolute. The archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, were dispatched to execute judgment upon the Watchers and their offspring. The Nephilim were struck down, their bodies turning to dust, their spirits cursed to wander the earth as malignant entities, the very origins of many demonic legends. Some apocrypha claim that these spirits still roam the world as agents of temptation and despair. The Watchers, meanwhile, were seized, bound hand and foot with chains of unbreakable iron, and cast into Dudadel, a prison described as a desert abyss of scorching winds and jagged rocks, far from the light of creation. Dudel would later reappear in various mystical texts and esoteric teachings as the archetype of divine prisons, a place outside time hidden within the folds of existence. Some occultists equate it to a dimension beyond human perception, sealed with sigils and wards known only to the highest ranks of celestial beings. Yet the punishment did not end there. Azazel was singled out among the Watchers, buried beneath rough stones in the desert, cursed to remain until the day of final judgment. His name would be immortalized in the ritual scapegoat, sent into the wilderness during Yom Kippur ceremonies, symbolically carrying away the sins of the people. Legends tell that even as the Watchers were shackled in darkness, their knowledge remained. The tools they gifted to humanity could not be unlearned. The arts of war, enchantment, and divination spread across the ancient world, carried by survivors and whispered through generations. The irony of the Watchers' fall is that they became both the corruptors and unintended architects of civilization itself. In the grimoires of later centuries, texts like the Lemegeton and the Book of Abramelin, fragments of this knowledge resurface, woven into spells and invocations. The names of Semjaza and Azazel appear again in occult circles, sometimes invoked as dark patrons of forbidden arts. In the shadows of medieval Europe, secret societies allegedly traced their origins to these first celestial rebels. Some modern scholars and esoteric thinkers interpret the story as an allegory for the human condition, the tragic yearning for knowledge and transcendence, regardless of the consequences. Others suggest the tale contains coded memories of a distant epoch, when advanced beings, whether divine or extraterrestrial, descended among primitive mankind. But regardless of the interpretation, one chilling truth remains constant. The Watchers crossed a line that was never meant to be crossed. Their fall is not just a story of celestial rebellion, it is the original sin of enlightenment, the moment when heaven's light mingled with earthly dust and spawned both wonder and horror. And even now, across forgotten temples, ancient ruins, and secret tomes, the legacy of their descent lingers, waiting to be uncovered by those brave or foolish enough to seek it. Shall we now descend deeper into the abyss and uncover the true nature of Dudil, the prison forged to hold these ancient beings for all eternity?
They were not meant to exist. The Nephilim, born from the forbidden union of celestial and mortal, stood as grotesque symbols of a world spiraling out of divine alignment. Towering above men, their footsteps cracked the earth, and their roars echoed across valleys. These hybrid giants were the living consequence of the Watchers' rebellion, and as they grew in strength and stature, so too did the shadow they cast upon humanity. The Book of Enoch describes them as beings of monstrous size and hunger, capable of leveling forests and draining entire rivers dry. Their very existence was a perversion of nature's balance. In ancient Hebrew, the term Nephilim is often translated as the fallen ones, or those who cause others to fall. Some interpretations link their name to NPL, meaning to fall or cast down, suggesting that their birth itself was an act of cosmic violence. These giants, according to apocryphal texts, were not mere beasts, but beings possessing intellect, cunning, and an insatiable thirst for dominion. Their half-angelic bloodline granted them abilities far beyond those of mortal men. They could lift boulders with ease, uproot ancient trees, and tear through armies like a storm. Some traditions claim that they stood as tall as cedar trees, rivaling the great ziggurats and temples that early civilizations would later build. Their hunger was not limited to conquest. Legends speak of the Nephilim consuming all that lay before them, cattle, crops, and eventually, men. When their appetites could no longer be sated by earthly means, they turned to cannibalism, devouring each other in frenzied bloodlust. It was in this self-destruction that they embodied the chaos of their unnatural creation. Across cultures and continents, echoes of these monstrous figures persist. The Greek Titans, beings of colossal might, who waged war against the Olympian gods, mirror the Nephilim in both form and fate. The Norse Jotnar, primordial giants, locked in endless struggle with the Aesir, also share this motif. In Hindu texts, the Daityas and Danavas, demonic giants opposed to the gods, bring similar themes of ancient battles between order and chaos. Intriguingly, archaeological enigmas have fueled the fires of speculation. The megalithic structures of Baalbek in Lebanon, with stones weighing upwards of 800 tons, defy simple explanations of human engineering from the Bronze Age. While mainstream archaeologists cite ramps, pulleys, and manpower, esoteric thinkers whisper of the Nephilim's hands shaping these colossal platforms. In Peru, the towering walls of Sacsayhuaman, constructed from stones so precisely cut and placed that even modern engineers marvel at their precision, have also been linked in folklore to giants from before the current age of man. Yet, the horror of the Nephilim lies not only in their size, but in their nature. The Nephilim were not merely physical threats, they were spiritual aberrations. Their existence corrupted the divine blueprint, creating a race whose very souls were tainted. The Book of Giants, a fragmentary text found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, describes the Nephilim
as beings plagued by dreams of impending doom, visions of celestial retribution they could not escape. Some esoteric traditions claim that the Nephilim were the first to unlock dark arts, rituals of blood and sacrifice that bound them to occult forces beyond human comprehension. These practices, inherited from their Watcher progenitors, allowed them to manipulate storms, summon beasts, and curse entire lands. Ancient Mesopotamian myths of demonic kings and sorcerer giants may well be distorted memories of the Nephilim's reign of terror. Their dominion spread across the earth, and human civilization teetered on the brink. Whole regions became desolate wastelands, abandoned as humanity fled from the cities and fields overrun by these monstrous hybrids. Some scholars believe that legends of lost lands, such as the biblical references to the land of the giants, or the destroyed cities of Bashan, once home to King Og, described in Deuteronomy as a giant, could be fragments of this ancestral fear. But the Nephilim's tyranny could not stand unchecked. The heavens themselves grew heavy with rage. According to the Apocrypha, it was the cries of humanity that reached the Most High and stirred divine intervention. The archangels descended, wielding weapons of heavenly fire, and the Nephilim fell in battle. Their bodies shattered mountains and scarred the earth. Yet, even in death, their spirits did not ascend. The Book of Enoch suggests that the souls of the Nephilim became disembodied entities, wandering spirits hungry for influence over the living. Many occult scholars identify them as the origin of Shedim, malevolent spirits referenced in Hebrew texts. Others draw parallels to the jinn of Islamic belief, beings of smokeless fire, who dwell in liminal spaces between worlds. In a chilling twist, the myth claims that the knowledge the Nephilim gained from their celestial fathers was not lost. Their arcane rites and blasphemous sciences seeped into early human cultures. The knowledge of summoning spirits, binding the winds, and crafting weapons imbued with dark power were, according to some occult traditions, legacies of the Nephilim's reign. This uneasy inheritance left an indelible mark on human civilization. The duality of creation and destruction, the pursuit of power, tainted by the sins of ancient giants, recurs in myths across the globe. The Vedic Asuras, the Canaanite Rephaim, and even certain Native American legends of star giants, all hint at a forgotten epoch when the earth was shared with beings who walked the line between gods and monsters. Even today, folklore from isolated regions tells of vast bones unearthed from the earth, relics attributed to ancient giants. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, reports of oversized skeletal remains occasionally surfaced in rural America, especially in the Ohio River Valley, home to the enigmatic Adena culture and their mound-building traditions. Though modern science attributes these to natural phenomena or hoaxes, the tales of giant bones continue to stir the collective imagination. But there is a darker undercurrent running through the story of the Nephilim. The giants were not merely the product of celestial lust, they were warnings of what occurs when the sacred order is broken, when beings seek to rewrite the laws that govern life and death. The Nephilim, born of rebellion, embodied the tragic futility of power without purpose, hunger without restraint, and yet, some esoteric schools suggest that traces of their bloodline endure. Secret societies and occult orders speak, often cryptically, of a Watcher's seed still present among certain bloodlines. Individuals gifted with unnatural charisma, intellect, or spiritual sensitivity, whether allegory or hidden truth. These whispers fuel an enduring fear that the Nephilim story is not merely a closed chapter of myth, but an unfinished saga. With the giants fallen, humanity believed itself freed from their terror. Yet, the scars left behind, the ruins, the forbidden knowledge, and the restless spirits suggest otherwise. And somewhere, in the vast desolate realms beyond mortal sight, the Watchers themselves languish in their cursed prison, watching still. Shall we venture further into the shadows and uncover the secrets of Dudel? the abyss that became their eternal tomb.
Azazel, the name itself reverberates through the corridors of forbidden history like a curse whispered in the dark. Among the fallen watchers, it is Azazel who emerges as the most enigmatic and dangerous. If Semjazar was the reluctant leader, then Azazel was the tempter, the architect of humanity's corrupted ascent. To him, the allure of forbidden knowledge was not a burden but a gift to bestow, a tool to mold humanity into something far beyond its original design. And so, with hands once radiant and pure, Azazel forged the instruments that would forever scar the earth. The Book of Enoch recounts how Azazel descended not only to partake in the carnal union with mortals, but to unlock for them the secrets hidden behind the veils of heaven. He was the first to teach mankind how to temper iron and bronze, how to forge swords sharp enough to pierce flesh and armor alike. Shields and breastplates followed, as did knowledge of weaponry, transforming early humans from scattered tribes into warriors armed for conquest. In the light of Azazel's teachings, humanity learned how to wage war, and in doing so, how to conquer, dominate, and destroy. Archaeological records show that the first significant advancements in metallurgy appeared in the ancient Near East, in regions such as Anatolia and Mesopotamia, around 3000 BCE. The leap from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age marked one of the most significant shifts in human history. Tools became more efficient, cities grew into fortified states, and with weapons now of metal, the scale and lethality of conflicts increased dramatically. While mainstream history credits human innovation, the mythos of Azazel offers a darker interpretation, that this knowledge was a celestial transgression gifted prematurely. But Azazel's influence did not end at the forge. He unveiled the arcane arts, teaching men to manipulate the natural world through enchantments, sigils, and invocations. Sorcery, astrology, and the crafting of charms flowed from his lips like poison disguised as honey. For the women, he taught the arts of beautification, the use of kohl to darken eyes, the crafting of jewelry, the creation of dyes and pigments that would enhance allure and sway hearts. Yet beneath these teachings lay an insidious core, the transformation of purity into seduction, of order into manipulation. Ancient civilizations bear the fingerprints of this transformation. In Sumerian texts, we find tales of sacred knowledge stolen from the gods and given to man. The myth of Inanna's descent into the underworld, where she acquires the me, the decrees of civilization and power, echoes with Azazel's influence. Likewise, the Egyptian Book of the Dead references spells, incantations, and rituals used to navigate the afterlife, hinting at an ancient tradition of divine knowledge appropriated for mortal ends. Azazel's role as a bearer of forbidden wisdom parallels other light-bringer figures across global myths. Prometheus, who defied Zeus to give fire to mankind, shares thematic resonance. But while Prometheus is often cast as a hero in Western thought, Azazel's legacy is steeped in ambiguity. He brought power, yes, but at what cost? With every sword forged under Azazel's guidance, humanity learned to take life with terrifying ease. Wars that were once fought with sticks and stones escalated into blood-soaked carnage. Tribes became kingdoms, and kingdoms became empires, built upon the backs of conquest and subjugation. And while metal tools advanced agriculture, architecture, and trade, they also entrenched inequality, greed, and bloodshed. Esoteric traditions later associated Azazel with deeper currents of occultism. In some strands of Western mysticism, Azazel is linked to the archetype of the dark teacher, the shadowy figure who offers knowledge with the hidden price of spiritual degradation. In grimoires, like the Book of Abramelin,
The motif of calling upon a spirit to unlock wisdom comes with a dire warning: not all teachers seek your salvation. The Levitical law immortalizes Azazel's name in the Yom Kippur scapegoat ritual. Once a year, the high priest would symbolically place the sins of the people upon a goat, sending it into the wilderness to Azazel, where it would meet its fate in desolation. Scholars debate whether Azazel here is a literal demon, a wilderness spirit, or a metaphor for exile. Yet the connection to isolation, punishment, and corruption is undeniable. According to apocryphal writings, Azazel's punishment for corrupting mankind was severe. The archangel Raphael was sent to bind him in chains and cast him into a desert abyss, covering him with sharp rocks to ensure he would never again walk among men. Some texts claim this abyss is Dudelan, the prison reserved for the most grievous celestial offenders. Yet whispers persist that Azazel's influence lingers still, that his chains were never truly unbreakable. In Islamic tradition, the figure of Azazel re-emerges, albeit transformed. Some interpretations suggest Azazel was an early name for Iblis, the jinn who refused to bow to Adam and was cast out of heaven. Though distinct in theology, the thematic overlap, prideful rebellion, the bringing of forbidden knowledge and corruption, is striking. Further complicating his legacy is the belief among certain esoteric circles that Azazel's knowledge seeded the origins of secret societies and occult orders. Medieval grimoires, Renaissance magical texts, and even modern occult systems sometimes invoke him, painting him as both a gatekeeper to hidden wisdom and a corrupter who tests the resolve and morality of those who seek it. In psychological terms, Azazel represents the dual-edged sword of knowledge itself. He is the voice whispering that power can elevate, but also destroy. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned that when one gazes too long into the abyss gazes back. Azazel is that abyss. His gifts are as alluring as they are fatal, offering the tools to reshape the world while unraveling the soul. Azazel's mark can be seen in the rise and fall of empires, in the blades of conquerors and the tomes of sorcerers. His is the legacy of ambition unmoored from morality, of enlightenment stripped of restraint. The story is not merely about the fall of an angel, but the birth of humanity's struggle with its own capacity for both creation and annihilation. But beneath the surface of myth and legend, one question lingers like an unspoken curse. Did Azazel's teachings end in the distant past, or do they continue to shape the hidden currents of the modern world? Are his whispers still carried on desert winds, or do they now echo within the corridors of power and the pages of forgotten grimoires? Perhaps in the ruins of ancient temples, or in the ink of occult manuscripts, traces of Azazel's forbidden gospel still linger, waiting for the next seeker to uncover them and to face the inevitable price. Shall we now journey into the bowels of Dudel itself, to gaze upon the forsaken prison that holds the watchers in chains beyond time, sealed beneath the jagged stones of the abyss?
With the coming of the watchers and the gifts of Azazel, a veil was torn between the sacred and the profane. What was once a world governed by the slow rhythms of nature and the simplicity of tribal life became a crucible of ambition, greed, and bloodshed. The corruption of mankind began not with open rebellion, but with the quiet seduction of forbidden knowledge. At first, humanity reveled in the sudden leap forward. Metallurgy flourished under Azazel's tutelage, giving birth to weapons sharper than bone and deadlier than stone. Communities that once bartered with livestock now stockpiled blades and breastplates, shifting from peaceful exchanges to territorial conquests. What began as an awakening soon spiraled into an arms race. As one chieftain outmatched another, cities rose fortified with iron, and warlords amassed power never before imagined. Yet it was not only the forge that tainted mankind. The Watchers had taught more subtle arts. Enchantments and talismans whispered promises of invincibility and dominion.
From the lips of Tamiel, mankind learned sorcery and the art of bending unseen forces to their will. Suddenly, men could manipulate nature, calling down storms or cursing their rivals with sickness. Fertile lands became wastelands, blighted by hexes and rituals gone awry. The Kabbalistic tradition speaks of how unbalanced knowledge creates cliff-off, or shells of unholy energy, corrupt fragments left behind when divine light is misused. Some esoteric scholars argue that the Watcher's teachings birthed the first cliffothic forces, dark reflections of divine Sephiroth that haunted the ancient world. The corruption spread like ink in water, staining not only the earth but the human soul. Social bonds frayed. Where once tribal elders guided their people with wisdom rooted in ancestral memory, now kings and tyrants ruled with iron and blood. Hierarchies became rigid, with the strong enslaving the weak. The cult of power flourished. Some rulers, claiming descent from Nephilim bloodlines, declared themselves divine, demanding worship and sacrifices to sustain their reign. The ancient Sumerian king list, which records rulers with reigns spanning hundreds of years, has often been cited as evidence of this distorted epoch. With war and conquest came other horrors. The Nephilim, insatiable and monstrous, hunted without remorse. Their appetites devastated crops, drained rivers, and left famine in their wake. Starvation drove mankind into darker practices, cannibalism, blood rites, and unspeakable offerings to appease their tormentors. The Nephilim themselves, emboldened by their Watcher fathers, taught the black arts of necromancy and spirit binding, setting the stage for the dark magic that would plague later civilizations. Even the simplest crafts were stained. The adornments taught by Azel, kohl pigments and jewelry, became tools of deception. Beauty turned into manipulation, and desire became a weapon. In ancient Mesopotamian and Egyptian art, women and men alike are depicted wearing elaborate cosmetics and intricate adornments. Yet in the mythos of the Watchers, these adornments were more than cultural. They were sigils, magical symbols woven into daily life, subtly influencing emotions, clouding judgment, and deepening the spiral into sin. The corruption of mankind also seeped into religious practices. Early polytheistic systems, which once honored forces of nature, became increasingly preoccupied with blood sacrifices and idol worship. Some apocryphal texts suggest that the Watchers themselves accepted offerings, presenting themselves as gods to primitive tribes. The Book of Jubilees hints that certain Watchers beyond Azel reveled in the devotion of mortals, feeding off their fears and binding them into dark covenants. This is where scholars often diverge. Some argue that the Watchers represent a cautionary tale about technology and power unchecked by morality. Others, particularly within Gnostic traditions, suggest that the Watchers were tragic heroes, beings who gave humanity the tools to awaken from ignorance, only for mankind to misuse them. Yet the result remains the same. Chaos became the norm. Entire cities vanished beneath the sands, their walls crumbling under the weight of divine wrath or internal collapse. The ruins of ancient Sumerian cities such as Eridu and Uruk bear witness to this ancient rise and fall, as do enigmatic remnants like the ziggurat of Dor-Kurugalzu or the megalithic foundations of ancient Byblos. But while ruins crumble, stories endure. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Giants speaks of the Nephilim's own corruption, how they turned on one another as madness and paranoia took hold. Dreams of celestial retribution plagued them, visions of giants drowning in floods, or of fiery swords descending from the heavens. It is here that the legend intertwines with the great flood myths found across cultures, from the biblical story of Noah to the Sumerian account of Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Modern interpretations often draw parallels between the mythic corruption of mankind and historical patterns of collapse. Civilizations that advanced too quickly without moral restraint, Rome, Babylon, even pre-Columbian empires, fell under the weight of their own decadence and brutality. Was Azal's lesson a blueprint for every great fall? Some conspiracy theorists have carried the myth further, connecting the Watcher's forbidden knowledge to shadowy organizations controlling scientific and technological advancements behind closed doors. Whispers of ancient bloodlines carrying the Nephilim's cursed legacy persist in fringe occult circles, suggesting that humanity's moral compass remains tethered to its primordial corruption. Psychologists too find resonance in the myth. Carl Jung, in his writings on the shadow self, warned of what occurs when the unconscious, repressed aspects of human nature are unleashed without conscious integration. Azal's story, viewed through this lens, is the unleashing of mankind's deepest instincts: aggression, lust, and the thirst for control, without the guidance of higher wisdom. Yet beyond all philosophical interpretations lies a chilling reminder. The corruption brought forth by the Watchers is not a relic of the past but a pattern etched into the collective psyche. Every time knowledge outpaces ethics, every time power is wielded without responsibility, the echoes of Azal's whisper return. And so, as the world descended into darkness, the heavens grew silent no longer. The cries of humanity, once empowered and now enslaved by its own greed, rose like smoke before the throne of the Most High. And in response the archangels prepared to descend. Shall we now journey further into the heart of this tale, as celestial wrath falls upon the earth, and the eternal prison of Dudel yawns open to swallow the fallen?
The earth trembled under the weight of corruption, and the cries of mankind pierced the firmament, reaching beyond the veil to the throne of the Most High. The blood-soaked altars, the screams from cities consumed by the Nephilim, and the black rites, whispered in the ruins of fallen temples, became a cacophony of despair. The Watchers had shattered the divine harmony, and the time for celestial silence had ended. From the ineffable light beyond creation, a decree echoed across the heavens. The rebellion would be stopped, the desecration cleansed. In the oldest apocryphal texts, it is written that the Almighty summoned his most trusted agents, beings of fire and light, whose names would later inspire awe and fear across every tradition. Michael, the warrior; Gabriel, the messenger; Raphael, the healer; and Uriel, the flame of divine wisdom. 4 archangels, each a manifestation of a facet of heaven's will, were tasked with restoring order to a world unraveling beneath the Watcher's sins. Michael, clad in celestial armor that shimmered like molten gold, was appointed as the commander of the heavenly host. His sword, forged from the first light of creation, could cleave through both spirit and matter. It is said that when Michael descended from the heavens, the sky itself split open, and clouds fled before him as armies of light followed. In Christian, Jewish, and Islamic traditions, Michael is portrayed as the great defender against the forces of darkness, the one who cast Lucifer from the heavens, and who, in the end times, will lead the final battle against evil. Gabriel, the herald of divine messages, appeared next, carrying the trumpet that would one day announce the end of days. But now, it was used to call forth divine judgment. His voice, when raised, shattered illusions, and tore through the webs of deception spun by the Watchers and their offspring. Gabriel, whose name means God is my strength, was more than a messenger. He was the enforcer of divine decrees, the hand that delivered fate to mortals and immortals alike. Raphael, the healer, descended not with a sword but with chains forged from the breath of heaven itself. These were no ordinary chains. They were symbols of divine restraint, capable of binding spirits and celestial beings alike. Raphael's task was to capture Azazel and imprison him beneath the earth. In Jewish mysticism and Islamic texts, Raphael is revered as the angel of healing, the guardian who watches over humanity's bodies and souls. But here he was the warden, ensuring that Azazel's poison would be locked away. Finally, Uriel, the angel of wisdom and flame,
came bearing a scroll inscribed with the secret names of power and the knowledge to seal the rift between heaven and earth. Uriel's name, meaning God is my light, signifies his role as the illuminator of the dark paths, the revealer of hidden truths. In apocalyptic literature, Uriel often acts as the guide through catastrophic revelations, and in this battle, he was to scorch the abominations from creation. The archangels did not act alone. Legions of seraphim, cherubim, and other celestial entities marched with them, their swords drawn, their wings aflame. The ancient Zohar describes how the armies of heaven are beyond number, their songs shaking the very pillars of the universe. And so, they descended, streaks of living light cutting through the firmament, as a war older than human memory ignited. The Nephilim, upon witnessing the descent of the heavenly host, felt fear for the first time. Their monstrous hearts, once hardened by arrogance, now trembled as they saw the luminous swords of Michael's legions, yet they did not fall quietly. The Book of Giants tells of how the Nephilim rallied against the angels, turning entire regions into battlefields where divine fire clashed with the brute strength of titans. Trees, mountains, and rivers were torn asunder, scarred by the fury of the war. Azazel, aware that his teachings were the root of this unraveling, stood defiantly upon the desolate plains of Dudale, where the confrontation reached its apex. He called forth storms of sand and darkness, summoning ancient spirits from the underworld to shield him. But Raphael's chains, glowing with the authority of heaven, ensnared him. Azazel fought with all the knowledge and sorcery he had gifted mankind, but nothing could break the judgment inscribed upon him. Bound hand and foot, he was dragged to a pit, sealed with stones sharp as knives, and above it, Raphael placed a mark, declaring that Azazel would remain imprisoned until the end of days. Michael, meanwhile, led the charge against the Watchers themselves. Semjaza and the others, realizing that their defiance was doomed, tried to plead for mercy. Some texts claim Semjaza wept as he was chained, his tears scorching the earth beneath him. Yet mercy was no longer an option. The Watchers were bound and cast into the abyssal prison of Dudale, where jagged rocks tore at their celestial forms, and the heat of the earth's heart would scorch them for eternity. The Nephilim fared no better. Gabriel's horn shattered their ranks, and the archangels slew them with divine fury. The cries of the giants, echoing through canyons and across deserts, became the stuff of legend. Some accounts suggest that the spirits of these fallen hybrids became the demonic entities feared in later traditions, roaming the earth, feeding off fear, lust, and violence. Uriel then took the scroll and sealed the dimensional breaches that the Watchers' forbidden teachings had created. It is said that his light burned away the rituals, the curses, and the blood rites scattered across the earth, restoring a fragile balance. But the damage was done. The knowledge could not be unlearned. Humanity, though now free of the Nephilim's tyranny, remained stained by the sins it had embraced. Some scholars have speculated that this celestial war, mythologized in apocryphal writings, may be a distant cultural memory of ancient cataclysms, massive floods, volcanic eruptions, and societal collapses that wiped away early civilizations. The myth of the divine intervention by the four archangels is mirrored in countless traditions: the Sumerian flood myth, the Hindu tales of the Devas quelling the Asuras, and the ancient Egyptian stories of gods purging chaos. In occult teachings, the intervention of the archangels marks a moment of karmic balance. The Colophothic shells, created by the misuse of celestial knowledge, were imprisoned but not destroyed. The shadow side of creation, knowledge without wisdom, power without compassion, remains dormant, waiting for those reckless enough to seek it again. And so, as the dust settled and the heavens withdrew their legions, the archangels returned to their realms, leaving behind a scarred but surviving humanity. Yet their presence did not fully vanish. Across centuries, countless mystics and visionaries have claimed to see Michael with his burning sword, or Gabriel with his trumpet of revelation, appearing at pivotal moments in history. Even today, occult orders and esoteric schools call upon the names of these archangels for protection, wisdom, and power. Their symbols are etched into grimoires, their invocations whispered in sacred rites. But beneath the reverence lies a lingering fear, a fear that the watchers may yet rise, that Dudael's seals may weaken, and that the whispers of Azazel might once again find willing ears. And now, as we stand at the threshold of hidden knowledge, shall we descend deeper still? Shall we step into the very abyss that holds the watchers, to explore the cursed prison of Dudael, where light is devoured, and eternity is but a moment?
The heavens were still ablaze when the final judgment was passed. The winds howled as if mourning, rivers ran red, and the trembling earth echoed with the wails of the Nephilim and the defeated watchers, the celestial host, their wings casting long shadows over the broken lands, stood as agents of divine justice, wielding swords not forged by human hands, but born of pure radiance. It was here, amid the shattered ruins of a once thriving earth, that the sentencing began. Bound by Raphael's luminous chains, the watchers were driven to their knees. Their ethereal forms, once glorious and resplendent, were now dimmed, flickering like dying stars. Semjaza, the leader of the rebellion, stood defiant but hollow-eyed. The Nephilim, monstrous and chaotic, were scattered across the battlefields, many already felled by Michael's blade, or consumed by Gabriel's trumpeted storm. Yet, the few that remained, battered and feral, still clawed at the celestial legions, until the last breath was torn from their corrupted lungs. The Book of Enoch describes this moment with chilling reverence. The archangels, acting as divine judges, addressed the watchers with the full authority of the Almighty. Uriel, the flame of wisdom, unrolled a scroll inked with ancient decrees, inscribed in a script lost to mortal tongues. His words thundered across the desolation, a sentence from beyond the veil of time. Your place was the stars, yet you cast yourselves into shadow. Your knowledge was for the heavens, yet you spilled it like poison upon the earth. One by one, the watchers were condemned. No plea could sway the decree. No act of contrition could undo the cosmic rupture they had wrought. It is written that Michael, bearer of the divine sword, took the lead in carrying out their sentence. His blade, wreathed in celestial fire, cut through the lingering Nephilim, who rose defiantly, their massive forms collapsing into dust and bone beneath his strike. Gabriel's horn sounded again, a vibration so powerful it shattered the twisted monuments and idols the Watchers' human followers had erected in their honor. As the surviving Watchers were gathered, a rift opened beneath them. Dudil, the abyssal prison prepared by the Almighty himself. The desert ground yawned wide, exposing a chasm so deep it devoured light itself. Ancient stones, sharper than razors and blackened by primordial fire, lined the pit's walls. Legends suggest that the place existed beyond the reach of time, a fracture in the world hidden from mortal eyes. Some mystics claim that even today, the lost desert sands of the Middle East conceal entrances to realms unknown, doorways to forgotten prisons like Dudil. Azazel, still shackled by Raphael's chains, was cast headfirst into the abyss. His defiant roar echoed upward, reverberating through the cosmic fabric. The Book of Enoch recounts how Raphael covered him with jagged stones, sealing the entrance to Dudil and marking the site with sigils of binding. Here, the archangel intoned, "Shall you remain until the end of days?" Semjaza and the remaining watchers followed, each hurled into the black pit, where they would be entombed beneath earth and stone, chained beneath layers of divine fire. In some Gnostic traditions, Dudil is seen not merely as a prison, but as a dimension outside creation, a void where fallen beings are stripped of their power and left to languish in eternal regret. The Nephilim, already decimated,
were purged completely. Uriel called down a storm of cleansing fire upon the lands where they had walked. Oceans rose in towering waves, floods consumed entire regions, and the skies darkened with storms, as the divine fury swept away the giant's corrupted legacy. This moment has often been linked to the Great Flood, a narrative found across cultures from the Mesopotamian tale of Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical account of Noah. Could it be that the flood was not merely a punishment for mankind, but a purging of the Nephilim's taint from the earth? The aftermath was a world scoured clean but scarred deeply. Humanity, left in the ashes of shattered cities and cursed fields, would slowly rebuild, but the memory of the Watcher's rebellion endured. The apocryphal texts suggest that remnants of the forbidden knowledge persisted, buried beneath temples or encoded in oral traditions, passed down through secretive priesthoods and occult orders. In later centuries, traces of the Watcher's fall would seep into mystical and esoteric traditions. The legend of Prometheus, chained to the Caucasus Mountains for gifting fire to mankind, parallels Azazel's punishment. The myth of Lucifer's descent mirrors Semjaza's prideful rebellion. Even in early Christian writings, the concept of Tartarus, a deep abyss reserved for rebellious angels, echoes Dudale's grim purpose. Some traditions even speak of ancient bloodlines cursed by the sins of their Watcher ancestors. In medieval lore, whispers of tainted families or individuals marked by unusual insight or a proclivity for dark arts were sometimes said to carry the Watcher's blood. The fear of secret societies wielding lost knowledge is a modern extension of this belief. As the archangels completed their grim task, Michael raised his sword to the heavens, signaling the end of the judgment. Gabriel's horn fell silent. The chains binding the Watchers vanished beneath the earth. The scroll in Uriel's hand burned away in holy fire, its verdict sealed for eternity. And Raphael, the healer, whispered words of restoration to the wounded earth, though even his voice could not fully undo the scars left by the rebellion. Yet, though the Watchers were imprisoned and the Nephilim eradicated, their legacy endured. Ancient ruins, forbidden texts and hidden relics still carried fragments of their influence. Occult practitioners, alchemists and seekers of hidden knowledge have long sought the keys to Dudale, hoping to unearth what was meant to remain buried. Was this truly the end of the Watchers, or merely the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's fraught relationship with forbidden knowledge? Even today, deep within esoteric circles, there are those who believe the Watcher's whispers still reach out from their abyssal prison. Some claim that in moments of great darkness, amid war tyranny and technological obsession, the influence of the fallen angels resurfaces, subtle but potent, guiding mankind back toward the path of corruption. The question lingers like a shadow at the edge of history. If Dudale were ever to open again, would humanity resist the call of the Watchers, or would it once more embrace the poisoned gift of divine knowledge? And now, with the archangels departed, and Dudale sealed, we stand before the threshold of the abyss. Shall we dare to peer deeper into this forgotten prison, where the echoes of the Watcher's rebellion still haunt the void, waiting to be heard once more?
Azazel stood defiant atop the barren plateau, as the desert winds howled around him, his chains glowing with celestial fire. The broken land of Dudale stretched beneath his feet, a desolation where even light dared not linger. His once radiant form, now dimmed and scarred by the weight of divine judgment, gazed into the maw of the abyss that waited below. Dudale, the prison crafted by the Most High, spoken of only in whispers across forgotten scrolls and the crumbling margins of apocryphal texts. Here, at the edge of the world, the punishment of the Watchers would be sealed in stone and flame. The Book of Enoch describes Dudale as a land of jagged cliffs and sharp stones, a cursed wasteland where Azazel would be cast down and buried alive beneath the scorched rocks. Raphael, the archangel who had bound him in chains, forged from the breath of heaven,
stepped forward with the authority of divine command. His voice, reverberating like a storm, declared Azazel's fate, eternal imprisonment beneath the desert's heart, until the great day of reckoning. As Raphael's hand rose, the ground beneath Azazel shuddered. The rocks split open, revealing a fissure that seemed to plunge into infinity. The air turned heavy, charged with the electric scent of ozone and sulfur. Ancient stones, blackened as if touched by primordial flame, ringed the chasm, inscribed with sigils that pulsed faintly in the shadows. Some esoteric scholars suggest that these marks were the earliest forms of angelic script, glyphs of binding and silence, meant to seal not just Azazel's body but his voice, preventing his whispers from infecting creation again. Azazel's fall into Dudel was not silent. As he plummeted into the abyss, his cry echoed across the heavens and the earth, a sound that, according to legend, still reverberates in the desert winds of forgotten lands. The moment his chained form struck the depths of the chasm, a tremor was said to roll across the earth, splitting ancient stones and leaving scars upon the land that some believe can still be traced in remote regions of the Middle East. Many occult traditions place Dudel somewhere within the wilderness east of Jerusalem, near the heart of ancient Canaanite territories. Some fringe archaeologists and mystics speculate that remote desert caves, such as those found in the Judean desert, are veiled entrances to Dudel's forgotten corridors, though none dare venture too far into these shadowed places without sensing a palpable dread. Within Dudel, Azazel found no throne of obsidian nor kingdom of flame. Instead, the abyss was a suffocating silence, broken only by the slow drip of subterranean rivers and the oppressive hum of the stone's sigils. It is said that time itself does not flow within Dudel, that a single moment stretches into an eternity. Azazel's celestial nature was bound by the laws of this prison, rendering him powerless but aware, condemned to endure endless cycles of isolation and regret. Yet Azazel's punishment was more than mere confinement. Some Kabbalistic interpretations claim that Dudel acts as a cosmic mirror, forcing those trapped within to confront the totality of their sins and the rippling consequences they inflicted upon the world. Azazel, burdened with the knowledge of humanity's suffering, the wars, the bloodshed, the corrupting hunger for power, was left to dwell upon the catastrophic price of the gifts he had shared. Legends whisper that his mind fractured in that abyss, that Azazel, once a being of radiant wisdom, now murmurs broken incantations to the walls of his prison. It is said that the stones themselves absorb his madness, warping into grotesque shapes and incomprehensible glyphs over millennia. Some occultists believe that these sigils later bled into the subconscious of mankind, inspiring cursed texts, heretical doctrines, and grimoires steeped in infernal knowledge. In Islamic esoteric lore, parallels can be drawn to Azazel's fate. While distinct from the Watcher's narrative, Azazel as a name occasionally appears associated with the early identity of Iblis, the being who refused to bow before Adam and was cast into disgrace. In both traditions, Azazel's pride and defiance precipitate a fall, though the Watcher's Azazel is uniquely bound to the sin of bestowing forbidden knowledge to mortals. But Dudel's terror extends beyond Azazel's imprisonment. The pit, according to Gnostic and apocalyptic writings, is a wound in creation, a nexus where the boundaries between the material world and the chaotic void beyond reality are thin. Some esoteric texts speak of Dudel as a place that hungers for souls, where the laws of nature disintegrate and where the light of heaven cannot penetrate. The Dead Sea Scrolls allude to Dudel in fragments, hinting at it as a wilderness where sacrificial rites may have been performed, possibly in dark remembrance of Azazel's exile. Some researchers have connected this to the Yom Kippur ritual, where a scapegoat symbolizing the sins of Israel was driven into the wilderness to Azazel, perhaps symbolically returning mankind's transgressions to the place of their original corrupter. More chilling still are the tales of those who claim to have stumbled upon echoes of Dudel in dreams or visions. Mystics recount encountering shadowed caverns where they hear chains rattling beneath the ground or feel a suffocating presence that gnaws at the edges of sanity. These accounts fuel the belief that Azazel's prison is not merely a myth but a metaphysical reality that intersects with the human psyche. In modern occult circles there are whispered accounts of rites designed to listen for the echoes of Azazel, to glean forbidden insights from the silence of Dudel itself. Rituals involving sigils, desert sands and ancient mantras attempt to pierce the veil, but always at a terrible cost. Those who attempt such workings often report feelings of despair, visions of cities crumbling beneath crimson skies, or the sensation of being watched by unseen eyes from deep within the earth. Yet the seals hold, at least for now. The Archangel's glyphs remain etched into the bedrock of Dudel's abyss, pulsing faintly with divine energy. But in esoteric apocalyptic texts, it is foretold that in the final days, Dudel's chains may weaken, that Azazel will rise once more to walk the earth. When that time comes, it is said he will not be alone. The other watchers too will awaken from their slumber within the pit, bringing with them the full force of celestial knowledge unbound by mercy. And so, as we stare into the abyssal heart of Dudel, we must ask what happens when the stones crack, when the seals falter, and when the whispering chains of Azazel finally break. Will humanity remember the lessons of the past, or will it once again be seduced by the promise of forbidden knowledge? As we prepare to descend deeper still into the fate of the other watchers and the legacy of Dudel, brace yourself, for what lies ahead are secrets so dark, so ancient, that even the angels themselves dared not speak them aloud.
Dudel is no mere chasm carved into the earth. It is a sentient wound, a malignant intelligence lurking beneath the facade of stone and shadow. Those who fall into its depths do not simply enter a pit. They are swallowed whole by an ancient consciousness that predates the fall of the Watchers, a primordial force as old as the chaos that birthed the stars. The abyss is alive, pulsing with a slow, sickening awareness that hungers not for flesh, but for spirit, thought, and will. As Azazel and the other Watchers were cast down into Dudel, they were not merely confined, they were consumed. The walls of the abyss twist and breathe, like a living organism, each jagged stone a rib, each cavernous corridor a gullet, leading deeper into an unfathomable stomach of despair. Azazel, chained within this esoteric maw, was the first to feel its touch. It pressed against his celestial form, probing, infiltrating his mind, peeling back the layers of his rebellion and pride like flesh from bone. Kabbalistic interpretations hint at realms beyond the tree of life, spaces where the husks of creation, the Qliphoth, dwell. Some scholars argue that Dudel itself is akin to these husks, a parasitic shell feeding off the sin and suffering of its inmates. The stones whisper in tongues that no mortal should comprehend, tongues that mirror the forgotten dialects of the Watchers themselves. These whispers coil through the minds of the imprisoned angels, sowing madness, guilt, and paranoia. In Gnostic texts, there are fragments that suggest Dudel may be a fracture in the demiurge's flawed creation, an imperfection too dangerous to be left unguarded. Some mystics call it the throat of Sheol, where unclean spirits are devoured and eternally digested. The Watchers, with their corrupted light and forbidden knowledge, are thus not merely punished, they are sustenance for this insatiable abyss. Time itself warps inside Dudel. What feels like an eternity of torment is but a heartbeat to the outside world. The prisoners lose all sense of past, present, and future, trapped in a perpetual now where their memories are replayed in grotesque loops. Azazel relives the rebellion, the teaching of forbidden arts, the betrayal of heaven, and the collapse of humanity, over and over.
each iteration more twisted than the last. Some grimoires suggest that this temporal distortion is Doodle's cruelest feature. The prisoners cannot even anticipate the end, for the end has been erased. But Doodle's sentience is not content with passive torment. It reaches out, like black tendrils, to shape the very substance of its captives' forms. The Watchers, once radiant beings of starlight and harmony, begin to change. Their celestial bodies are stretched and contorted, fusing with the walls and stones, becoming monstrous parodies of their former selves. This echoes tales from later demonologies, where beings like Azazel are depicted not as fallen angels, but as grotesque entities, horned, disfigured, chained to cursed landscapes. In later Jewish mysticism, Doodle is occasionally linked to Gehinnom, or Gehenna, the purgatorial realm, where souls are purified by flame. Yet Doodle is colder than fire, more suffocating than the hottest inferno. The cold there is the absence of divine light itself, a cosmic vacuum, where the screams of the Watchers echo forever into the suffocating dark. Legends from the Zohar tell of angels tasked with standing guard over the gates of such abyssal realms, ensuring that what is bound within cannot claw its way free. Some even believe that Michael himself still watches over Doodle from afar, ready to strike should the seals weaken. Yet the abyss itself is cunning. It gnaws at its bonds, seeping through cracks in creation, sending dreams and whispers to the waking world. There are accounts throughout history of prophets, mystics, and madmen, claiming to have heard Azazel calling from beneath the earth, offering forbidden insights in exchange for release. One such tale comes from an obscure medieval grimoire, which describes a desert wanderer who stumbled upon a cavern marked with strange, ancient glyphs. Inside, he encountered visions of chained giants wailing in silence, and a voice that offered him knowledge in return for a simple blood ritual. The man fled, but the account was recorded as evidence of Doodle's breath, reaching into the mortal world. Even in modern esotericism, the concept of Doodle as a sentient, malevolent force has persisted. In certain occult circles, rituals exist that purportedly invoke the Black Mouth, a symbolic representation of Doodle itself, promising hidden wisdom for a price no sane person would willingly pay. Accounts from occult practitioners who dared such rituals often describe hallucinations of labyrinthine catacombs, where shadows shift and the walls pulse like veins beneath skin. Yet despite Doodle's hunger, its true prison is not merely the chains upon the Watchers, but the abyss's hunger for hope. Within its bowels, the fallen angels gradually lose their will to resist. Despair becomes their only companion, a fog that blurs even the memory of light. Azazel, trapped within the coils of this sentient pit, eventually ceases his roars of defiance, replaced by muttered fragments of forgotten prayers, cursed incantations, and broken dreams of rebellion. Occult historians have noted that the idea of a sentient prison is not unique to Doodle. Similar motifs appear in the mythologies of other cultures, the Greek Tartarus, where primordial beings are held in the belly of the earth, the Norse Niflheim, a realm of perpetual cold and darkness, and even certain interpretations of the Egyptian Doodle, where souls face the devouring serpent Apep. Some scholars go so far as to suggest that Doodle is a meta-symbol, an archetype for the collective human fear of isolation, guilt, and the inescapable pull of self-destruction. After all, the Watchers' sin was not simply rebellion but hubris, the pride that drove them to breach boundaries, never meant to be crossed. But what if Doodle is more than a cautionary tale? What if it is an ever-present reality, hidden beneath the folds of space and time, awaiting the moment when the seals will weaken, and the abyss will once again hunger for the light of creation? To this day, some claim that earthquakes in remote deserts, sudden sinkholes, and mysterious disappearances are signs that Doodle stirs beneath the earth, pressing against its confines. Could it be that the abyss remembers its captives as vividly as they remember their fall? And what if in the darkest corners of the human mind, Doodle has already found cracks through which to whisper its timeless hunger? The abyss waits, and as we continue our journey into the depths of this forbidden history, remember, it is not the screams of the watchers that should terrify us most, but the silence of the pit itself.
There is no death in Doodale, no final release, no oblivion that would grant even the faintest mercy to those imprisoned within. Instead, the Watchers and their leader Azazel are trapped in an eternal loop of guilt and torment. Within the abyssal belly of this sentient prison, the very fabric of existence has been rewritten to deny the captives the peace of nothingness. Here, suffering is not a punishment, but a constant companion, etched into every stone and every breathless shadow. The Watchers, once radiant beings of celestial brilliance, now hang in chains of lightless iron, suspended above black chasms, where echoes never fade. Time inside Doodale is fractured. The fallen angels do not experience the flow of hours or centuries as mortals do. Instead, they are bound in a cyclical nightmare, reliving their betrayal over and over, each iteration more grotesque and distorted than the last. They remember the moment they descended from heaven, the fire in their hearts as they imparted forbidden knowledge to humanity, the pride, the ecstasy, and then the horror as they watched civilizations crumble beneath the weight of their gifts. Azazel is said to walk the floor of the abyss, in chains that cut deeper with each step. His wings, once vast and resplendent, are now tattered veils of withered light, dragging behind him like funeral shrouds. The rocks of Doodale murmur ceaselessly, chanting broken prayers and cursed mantras that burrow into his mind, forcing him to confront every atrocity sown from his teachings. In the Islamic narrative of Azazel as Iblis, the punishment is spiritual estrangement, but here, the estrangement is physical, a labyrinth, where every corridor is a mirror of past sins. The horrors do not end with mere visions. Doodale reshapes reality itself. The Watchers see themselves transmuted, their angelic forms warped by the abyss's cruel will. Feathers slough off in clumps, turning to ash midair. Flesh stretches and warps, wings atrophy. Some are molded into statues of living stone, forever frozen in agonizing poses, silent screams etched into faces of cracked marble. Others, like Semjaza, are crucified upon jagged monoliths of basalt, their eyes forced open to watch aeons pass. Certain strands of Jewish mysticism propose that in Doodale, the fallen angels are subjected to Kaf HaKela, a punishment of being flung between realms, never fully in one world or the next, caught in an eternal whiplash between dimensions. Here, the prisoners are sometimes torn from Doodale's suffocating caverns and hurled into visions of the mortal world, only to be dragged back into the abyss as soon as they catch a glimpse of sunlight or remember the scent of earth. This is a special cruelty. Hope dangled before them, only to be devoured by the prison's hunger. In rare occult writings, there are mentions of Doodale's illusions, designed to strip away the Watcher's last shreds of selfhood. Entire cities are conjured in the void, forged from their memories of heaven, or the first earthly paradises. The angels wander these false landscapes, greeted by apparitions of humanity, the very mortals they corrupted. Some illusions appear as the faces of the women they took as wives, twisted and decayed, their lips sewn shut by unseen threads, their eyes brimming with silent blame. Others depict humanity in chains, kneeling beneath tyrants forged from the Watcher's own warped reflections. There is no rest, for Doodale grants no sleep. There is no dreamless void to retreat to, no moment of unconsciousness. The prisoners are locked in a state of perpetual wakefulness. Some accounts claim that the psychological torment is so potent that even death, if it were possible, would be an act of mercy. Yet the chains bind them tighter than bone and sinew, holding them within existence itself. They cannot die, for the abyss will not allow it. In the apocalyptic visions of the Book of Enoch,
Dudale's horrors are hinted at, but never fully described. Perhaps even the scribes who chronicled its existence could not bring themselves to record the true extent of the torment within. Yet whispers from later mystical texts suggest that the abyss has a will of its own, pressing into the watchers' minds with labyrinthine patterns, visions of endless staircases, spiraling into the depths of their own guilt. Azazel, once the proudest among them, is said to hear the cries of every human soul, lost to the knowledge he sowed, echoing through Dudale's halls like a choir of ghosts. Their wails are without words, yet carry the weight of every battlefield, every blade forged in hate, every sorcery that shattered the balance of the world. It is not only the spirits of men that haunt Dudale. The Nephilim, though their physical forms were destroyed, are said to stalk the abyss in shadowed fragments. Towering silhouettes drift along the prison's unseen walls, silent titans, monstrous and faceless, mere outlines of their former selves, doomed to gnaw at the stones as if searching for escape. These fractured souls, devoid of purpose, hunt the watchers who gave them life, seeking vengeance in a realm where vengeance is as hollow as hope. Some scholars draw connections between Dudale's eternal torment and broader esoteric themes found in other ancient traditions. In the ancient Greek concept of Tartarus, the Titans are likewise trapped in a bottomless pit, chained beyond the reach of the Olympian gods. In Hindu cosmology, Naraka serves as a realm of punishment, where time becomes irrelevant, and souls undergo torments designed not just to punish, but to erode the very core of their being. Modern occultists have speculated that Dudale's horrors may be allegorical, representing the dangers of unchecked knowledge and hubris. The Watcher's suffering reflects the ancient fear that wisdom, if stolen or misused, leads not to enlightenment, but to annihilation of the self. In this reading, Dudale is not just a location but an archetype, the hidden pit within the human psyche, where our deepest regrets and forbidden desires fester. Despite the overwhelming despair, the abyss whispers temptations to its prisoners. It offers twisted bargains, promises of release, if they simply surrender what remains of their identities. It tells Azazel he can be free if he sheds his very name, if he dissolves into the black fabric of the prison and becomes one with its hunger. But to accept such a fate would be a fate worse than death, to lose the self entirely, to become an eternal shadow gnawing at the edges of creation. Some mystics believe that the Watchers resist not only out of pride, but out of fear that their dissolution would give Dudale the strength to tear through its seals and spill into the world above. If Azazel were to become one with the abyss, would Dudale itself awaken as something far more monstrous than any prison, a devouring god? And so, the Watchers endure, trapped in a cycle where guilt has form, where memories are blades, and where the absence of death is the deepest cruelty of all. The horrors of Dudale are a mirror to their betrayal, a sentence without end, where even eternity weeps. But perhaps the most chilling truth is that the abyss is not full. It waits, patient and hungering, for others who might stumble too close to forbidden knowledge. For Dudale is not only the Watcher's prison, it is a warning etched into the bones of the world. And as we continue this descent into the labyrinth of celestial rebellion, remember what lies beneath the earth may also lie within ourselves, waiting to be unearthed.
The guardians of Dudale are whispered of only in esoteric circles, figures so ancient and enigmatic that even the archangels who forged the prison do not speak their names aloud. They are beings that dwell beyond the duality of light and darkness, entities untouched by the divine conflict between heaven and the abyss. Some describe them as the first children of creation, predating angels, demons, and even the stars themselves, forgotten by all but the most secretive traditions. These guardians are the sentinels of the abyss, neither cruel nor merciful, but relentless in their purpose. They stand in the liminal space, where Dudale's cavernous maw meets the fabric of the mortal world, often mistaken for stone statues carved into the jagged cliffs. They awaken only when the abyss stirs, or when an unwary soul dares approach the cursed threshold. Witnesses, few and scattered across millennia, have described them as towering, hooded figures cloaked in robes woven from the void itself,
Their faces remain hidden beneath featureless masks, or beneath the folds of their darkened garb. When they move, they do so without sound, as if reality bends around them. Some occult manuscripts, long lost to the fires of inquisitions, or locked away in private collections, refer to them as the eerie, a name sharing etymological roots with ancient references to watchers. But unlike their fallen brethren, the eerie remain loyal not to God, nor to Lucifer, but to the primordial laws that bind creation itself. They are neither living nor dead, neither flesh nor spirit. Some texts propose that they are the remnants of the first cosmic architects, charged with guarding the weakest point in the veil between the physical world and the chaos that festers beneath. The Zohar, one of the core works of Kabbalah, hints cryptically at such beings who stand at the gates of the void, silent stewards who hold back that which should never be set free. Their gaze is said to pierce not just the flesh, but the soul itself, unraveling the layers of a being's essence to determine whether they are worthy to pass, or to be consumed by the abyss. Yet no human has ever been deemed worthy. Those who encounter the guardians are said to be erased, their existence unmade, leaving no trace in history or memory. Legends from early apocalyptic literature suggest that the guardians are capable of silencing even the voices of fallen angels. Inside Dudel, when Azazel or the other watchers attempt to speak incantations, curse the heavens, or call to the realms above, the guardian's presence drowns their words in absolute silence. It is said that even thought is muffled in their proximity, that within their presence one can hear only the slow, steady pulse of the abyss itself. Certain Sumerian myths contain references to gatekeepers of the underworld, figures who stand sentinel at the threshold between life and the nether realms. While these stories differ greatly from the Judeo-Christian traditions of Dudel, the archetype is eerily similar: beings that are neither benevolent nor malevolent, but necessary, impartial enforcers of cosmic law. Could the guardians of Dudel be a distant echo of this same concept, carried across cultures and epochs? Mystics and occultists throughout history have attempted to categorize the nature of these entities. Some claim they are aspects of the abyss itself, Dudel's will-given form. Others argue they are manifestations of the Creator's will, forgotten sentinels tasked with maintaining the balance of creation, while the rest of the cosmos moved on. More radical theories suggest that they are the last remnants of a pre-Adamic civilization, beings who transcended physical existence and now serve as custodians of the abyss they inadvertently created. Occult traditions often describe the guardians wielding weapons or tools of incomprehensible design. Some accounts describe staffs topped with geometrical shapes that defy Euclidean space, symbols said to suppress magic, disrupt angelic light, and absorb demonic flame. Others depict the guardians as speaking in harmonic frequencies, sounds that dissolve incantations and paralyze even the most powerful entities who stray too close to Dudel's gates. In certain apocryphal writings, there are rare instances where the guardians have interacted with mortals. A fragment from a now lost codex of the Dead Sea Scrolls tells of a wandering priest who stumbled upon a hidden valley where shadowy figures lined the cliffs. He returned to his village with no memory of his journey, save for cryptic symbols carved into his skin, sigils that scholars later identified as ancient seals of binding, older than any known script. Some believe he was marked by the guardians as a living warning to others who might seek the abyss. It is whispered that Dudel's guardians have no allegiance to time or space. They exist simultaneously at the prison's gates, within its labyrinthine depths, and perhaps even beyond it. In rare occult rituals, certain summoners have attempted to call upon them as protectors or guides, but all who have tried have vanished or gone mad. Their will is absolute, they cannot be coerced or corrupted. Unlike angels, they do not offer visions or prophecies. Unlike demons, they do not tempt or bargain. They exist solely to guard the boundary. In the deeper reaches of Dudel, where even Azazel's chains are lost in the darkness, the guardians are said to patrol the labyrinth, ensuring that the watchers cannot escape, nor lose themselves in madness. so deep that their consciousness dissolves into oblivion. The abyss needs its prisoners to suffer, to endure, to feed its insatiable hunger, and the guardians ensure that this grim cycle never falters. Yet the most terrifying mystery of the guardians is their origin. Who created them? Were they born of the same divine hand that made the archangels? Or are they constructs of the abyss itself? Are they remnants of a forgotten war between cosmic forces now erased from all scriptures? Some radical mystics speculate that they predate even the Creator, relics from a time when chaos ruled supreme, and the universe was but a shapeless sea of night. As with all things tied to Dudel, certainty slips like sand through the fingers. The guardians remain unknowable, watching from behind their masks, waiting in the silence. And as the world above slumbers, unaware of the chasm beneath its feet, the guardians stand eternal, ensuring that nothing rises from the abyss. Yet one cannot help but wonder, if the day comes when Dudel itself stirs awake, will the guardians defend the world from the abyss, or will they serve as its heralds? In the shadows of forgotten texts, and the dreams of madmen, the guardians of Dudel persist, watching, waiting, and though humanity may never gaze upon them directly, their presence presses against the edges of reality like a storm on the horizon. For now the seals hold, but the sentinels remain, as patient as the abyss they serve.
They are not known by names in any human tongue, but among the scattered fragments of forbidden texts, they are referred to as the Lamenters and the Threshold Guardian. These entities are the nightmarish gatekeepers of Dudel, and their forms defy the limits of mortal comprehension. The Lamenters are the first to greet any presence that dares approach the blackened maw of the abyss. Imagine a shifting, writhing mass composed entirely of mouths, countless twisted mouths of varying sizes and shapes, all fused together in a churning, undulating amalgam of flesh and stone. Each mouth whispers in a different voice, each one speaking a secret from beyond the veil, a fragment of forbidden knowledge, or a confession of cosmic guilt. They speak of horrors that have no origin, tragedies never recorded, and names long lost to time. Their chorus is an ocean of unbearable sorrow, and to hear it is to feel one's sanity unravel like a frayed thread. The Lamenters do not scream or shout. Their whispers are soft, persistent, and insidious. Some occult accounts describe how, if one listens too long, these voices will burrow into the mind, implanting thoughts not your own, visions of Dudel's depths, flashes of the Watcher's suffering, and ghastly images of the abyss, slowly consuming creation itself. Ancient esoteric texts, such as the Sefer Reziel Hamalak, make veiled allusions to beings who weep without eyes, mouths that bleed without teeth, suggesting an ancestral memory of such entities in the cultural subconscious. Certain Gnostic sects once believed that the whispers of the Lamenters could infect entire villages, driving people to madness, or leading them to vanish into the wilderness, never to return. The Lamenters slither through the perimeter of Dudel, their mass weaving between jagged stones and skeletal trees, leaving trails of black ichor that corrupt the very ground. Where they linger, life dies, plants rot, animals flee, and even the wind falls silent. Yet these beings do not attack, they ensnare. Their purpose is to trap minds, to break wills before the true terror arrives. And then there is the Threshold Guardian, towering above the chasm, standing in eternal vigil before the gaping wound of Dudel itself. The Threshold Guardian is a figure draped in a seamless cloak of endless black. It has no discernible features, no eyes, no mouth, no face. Where its head should be, there is only a vertical crack, like a fault line in reality itself. This fissure is not merely an absence of light, but a void so deep that it absorbs sound, light, and thought alike. Those who have claimed to encounter this entity speak of how their screams were devoured the moment they opened their mouths. In its presence, even the most guttural cries become mute, swallowed by the crack in its face. The Threshold Guardian is silent,
but radiates an overwhelming pressure, like standing at the edge of an endless abyss within an abyss. Some mystics compare it to the biblical concept of the angel of death, but even that figure pales in comparison to the guardian's eldritch aura. Kabbalistic traditions refer to the tzimtzum, the divine contraction that allowed the world to exist outside God's light. Some occult scholars theorize that the threshold guardian is a remnant of that void, a fragment of pure nothingness given form. Its movements are glacial. When it raises a hand, long bony fingers ending in nails of blackened iron, the winds cease, and even the flow of time feels suspended. It does not fight nor chase, for none have ever made it past its silent vigil. The guardian's mere presence disintegrates the will to proceed, stripping away courage, faith, and hope like tattered robes in a storm. Legends hold that it once spoke a single word in the earliest age of the world, a word that cracked the foundation of a forgotten city and reduced it to salt and ash. It is said that the threshold guardian feeds not on flesh but on identity. Those who approach Dudel's threshold, be they mortal or celestial, find themselves emptied, names forgotten, memories erased, souls hollowed. Only an empty vessel remains, drifting into the abyss. In some grimoires, this guardian is hinted to be an echo of the void itself, a fragment of primordial chaos left behind after creation's ordering. Further within Dudel, scattered among the labyrinthine caverns, are pale statues believed to be the guardian's victims, beings who lost themselves to the entity's hunger. Their faces are blank slates, smooth and featureless, their hands outstretched as if forever begging for mercy, or perhaps attempting to hold on to some fragment of their former selves. Occult writings describe how, on rare nights beneath blood moons, these statues are said to weep black tears that vanish into the earth, fueling the restless hunger of the abyss. An obscure scroll from the Cairo Geniza recounts the tale of a desert wanderer who crossed paths with both the Lamenters and the Threshold Guardian. He returned days later to his village, unable to speak and unable to remember his own name, his skin etched with labyrinthine patterns resembling the tunnels of Dudel itself. He spent the rest of his life drawing spiral symbols in the sand, which have since been linked to ancient protective wards found in ruins near Mount Hermon, the reputed location where the Watchers first descended. Some modern esoteric circles speak of the Lamenters and the Threshold Guardian, not as separate entities, but as facets of a singular intelligence, the consciousness of Dudel itself, manifesting in forms that the human mind can barely process. Ritualists who have attempted to summon visions of these beings through trance or sigil work describe sensations of their voices being swallowed mid-sentence, or hearing faint, mocking whispers echoing from within darkened mirrors. There are even whispered rumors of remote archaeological sites, where remnants of ancient rituals, possibly dedicated to these guardians, have been uncovered. Strange stone circles marked with spiraling glyphs, ossuaries filled with skulls bearing fractured jawbones, as if shattered by silent screams, and faded murals depicting faceless figures watching over vast starless abysses. The Lamenters and the Threshold Guardian remain part of a grander and darker mystery. Are they wardens placed by divine command, or are they the abyss's self-defense, a reflex of cosmic horror to preserve its prisoners and its secrets? Their purpose may be simple yet terrible, to ensure that none disturb the silence of Dudel, and that nothing, not even whispers, escapes. And yet, as the seals weaken with the grinding gears of time, one cannot help but wonder, when the day comes that Dudel's hunger can no longer be contained, will the Lamenters and the Threshold Guardian still stand watch, or will they open the gates themselves? The answers lie deeper within the black veins of the abyss.
According to the hidden scrolls and whispered legends buried beneath layers of apocryphal scripture, the women who bore the Nephilim, those towering giants of violence and excess, were not spared divine wrath. Their fate, far from merciful, was woven into the fabric of cosmic punishment. Unlike the Watchers, who were cast into Dudale's abyss. These mortal women were condemned to a half-existence, transformed into cursed beings forever caught between the physical and spiritual realms. The ancient texts refer to them not as simple victims, but as sirens, creatures laced with sorrow, bound to the winds and waters of the earth, forever lamenting their role in birthing chaos into the world. In the Book of Enoch, the silence surrounding the fate of these women is deafening, but between the lines, certain esoteric traditions claim to have uncovered what befell them. As the Nephilim sowed violence and terror across the early world, the women who bore them became marked, their bodies and souls tainted by the unnatural union with celestial beings. Their humanity was stripped away in stages, not by physical death, but by a slow unraveling of their essence, as divine justice mingled with the lingering corruption left by their offspring. They were cursed to wander liminal spaces, deserts where the horizon is forever out of reach, seas that reflect no stars, forests that seem to breathe. These sirens, as they came to be known in later folklore, were neither dead nor alive. They became whispers on the wind, silhouettes seen in the corner of a weary traveler's eye, voices luring sailors into maelstroms, or leading desert nomads astray, until they vanished without a trace. They are the timeless sorrow, echoing through every culture's tales of spirits haunting the thresholds of existence. Occult grimoires describe how the sirens' cries can fracture reality itself. Their song is unlike that of the sirens from Greek myth, whose beauty tempts sailors. These beings sing songs of despair, of unbearable loss, of eternity spent longing for children they can no longer hold. Their laments resonate with frequencies that warp perception, making the listener lose all sense of direction, memory, and identity. Some accounts claim that the sirens wander near hidden entrances to Dudale, as if drawn by the abyss that imprisoned the fathers of their monstrous children. The Zohar makes cryptic mention of spirits known as Lilin, or mothers of the Nephilim, cursed entities trapped within the realms of Gehenna. In some traditions, these figures became conflated with the sirens, suggesting that the cursed mothers were not destroyed, but transformed into emissaries of sorrow, tasked with bearing witness to the horrors unleashed by their progeny. Their punishment is said to be more than banishment. It is to exist as eternal bridges between realms, ferrymen of despair, who ensure that the weight of the Watcher's rebellion is never forgotten. In medieval European folklore, echoes of these cursed women appear as banshees, keening spirits whose wails foretell death. Scholars of comparative mythology have noted that these figures share disturbing similarities with the ancient sirens of Semitic and Mesopotamian lore. Some interpretations suggest that these cross-cultural echoes are no coincidence, but residual memories of the original punishment handed down in the wake of the Watcher's fall. Modern occultists who claim to have encountered such beings describe them as translucent figures, draped in tattered veils that blend into the mist. Their eyes are hollow sockets leaking streams of black tears, their voices piercing the veil between waking reality and dream. Some practitioners believe that when the sirens sing near a mortal settlement, it marks a thinning of the boundary between realms, a warning that Dudale stirs, or that one of the imprisoned Watchers may be reaching out through dreams and madness. The sirens are also said to be drawn to bodies of water, particularly isolated lakes and coastal inlets where the water is still and dark. Certain ancient maritime legends speak of the morning tide, a phenomenon where entire crews vanish at sea, their ships later found adrift and empty, with strange sigils etched into the timbers. Occult historians speculate that such events are tied to the siren's song, a curse rippling outward from the primordial wrong that created them. One chilling tale from Mesopotamian mythology describes the river spirits known as Apsu daughters, women who reside in subterranean rivers beneath the earth, weeping for the children they birthed and lost. Their cries were said to cause springs to run dry
or overflow violently, drowning entire villages in what was called the grief flood. Could these tales be a distorted memory of the cursed women of the Nephilim, who now exist as shadows beneath the surface of history and nature itself? Ritual texts from the early Gnostic sects mention the veiled mothers, spectral entities who guard gateways to hidden realms, particularly caves, believed to be entrances to hellish worlds like Dudale. Some sects believed that these beings could be placated with offerings, tokens of remembrance, such as locks of hair or tears collected in glass vials, to ward off their influence, or grant safe passage through cursed lands. Yet their true nature remains elusive. Are the sirens victims, punished unjustly for the sins of the Watchers, or are they willing accomplices in an ancient cosmic transgression, bound to the consequences of their choices? Some texts imply that these women, seduced by the celestial glow of the Watchers, willingly defied divine law, eager to birth something greater than humanity. Others portray them as unwilling pawns in a divine tragedy, caught between the lust of fallen angels and the vengeance of an unyielding God. Regardless of their origins, the sirens embody an eternal paradox. Caught between two worlds, they are reminders of the unbearable consequences of forbidden knowledge. Neither mortal nor fully divine, neither Holy Spirit nor flesh, they are forever seeking what they cannot reclaim, their humanity. Some occultists argue that their song is not merely lamentation but a key. A rare few who claim to have survived encounters with these entities speak of hearing layers within the cries, codes hidden in sorrow. When deciphered, these codes allegedly reveal locations of ancient seals, remnants of the divine locks that hold Dudale closed. But to listen too closely is to risk madness, as the siren's song also carries fragments of Dudale's hunger, the whispers of the abyss that gnaw at the soul. To this day, certain remote cultures conduct silent rituals at the edges of deserts or near deep lakes, leaving offerings and avoiding any sounds at dusk or dawn, when the sirens are believed to be most active. Travelers are warned to resist following any disembodied cries, lest they be led into realms from which they cannot return. The punishment of these women lingers as a cautionary shadow over all stories of the Watchers. Their existence is a grim reflection of the price paid when mortals touch the celestial, when the veil is torn and new monstrous life is created. They are as much prisoners as the Watchers themselves, wandering between stars and stones, between waves and wind, forever weeping for what has been lost. And as we peer deeper into this ancient web of tragedy and forbidden lore, one truth becomes undeniable: no one, not even the innocent, escapes the grip of the abyss.
The sirens of Dudale are not merely cursed remnants of human women. They are enduring symbols of duality, embodying both seduction and retribution. Their very existence reflects an ancient and universal theme that has echoed through countless mythologies and spiritual traditions. Much like Lilith, the first wife of Adam in Jewish mysticism, or the alluring and deadly sirens of Greek legend, these spectral beings represent the paradox where desire and punishment are inseparably bound. In Jewish mysticism, Lilith is portrayed as a figure who defies divine order, refusing to submit to Adam and fleeing Eden. Banished and cursed, she becomes a demoness, wandering the earth and tempting men, while also being associated with the death of infants and the corruption of purity. Yet, beneath the veneer of horror, Lilith is also a symbol of feminine autonomy, rebellion, and the dangers of unchecked desire. The sirens of Dudale share this archetypal DNA. They too defied divine mandates by consorting with the Watchers, driven by a yearning that transcended human comprehension, a desire to birth something greater, to touch the divine. But the sirens of Dudale go further. They do not simply seduce mortals with promises of pleasure or forbidden knowledge. They are the embodiment of sorrow itself, their wails an intoxicating poison. Their song is the reverberation of cosmic guilt, resonating not only with lust,
but with the unbearable weight of consequence. Just as the sirens of Homer's Odyssey lured sailors to their doom, these beings call to those who linger near sacred or cursed thresholds, cliffs, oceans, deserts, or even places of ancient worship. Their allure is irresistible, yet it leads not to carnal union, but to spiritual annihilation. Ancient Greeks believed the sirens were daughters of the river god Achelous, cursed to live on an island where they lured sailors to their deaths with haunting melodies. These figures were often depicted as part woman, part bird, hybrid monstrosities embodying the duality of heaven and earth. In Dudel's narrative, the sirens remain human in form, but spectral in nature, gliding between realms, whispering into the ears of those who tread too close to the abyss. Some occult manuscripts suggest that their song carries the same hidden patterns as the ancient hymns used in summoning rituals, melodies that can twist fate or fracture reality itself. In the folklore of Slavic cultures, we find echoes of the Dudel sirens in the Rosalka, water spirits born from women who met tragic deaths. Like the sirens, Rosalki dwell near lakes and rivers, luring passers-by into the water with their beauty and mournful singing. Yet, the sirens of Dudel are not simply ghosts. They are cosmic sentinels of temptation and guilt, reminders of humanity's transgression against divine boundaries. Symbolically, the sirens embody the concept of liminality, the space between worlds, where laws break down and reality becomes porous. They reside in the cracks between dimensions, where mortal desire meets celestial punishment. Every time they sing, they remind listeners of the dangers of yearning for forbidden knowledge, much like the Gnostic tales where Sophia, seeking to understand the unknowable Godhead, inadvertently births the Demiurge, a flawed creator. The siren's presence is a living parable. Reaching beyond your station brings ruin, and seduction itself is both a gift and a curse. Their song, according to some occult traditions, has a secondary symbolism. It is said to echo the primordial vibration of creation itself, the music that once shaped reality in its infancy. Yet, corrupted by sin and sorrow, this song now brings not life but dissolution. Scholars of Kabbalah might compare this to the Shivarat HaKalim, the shattering of the vessels in Lurianic Kabbalah, where the initial divine light was too powerful for creation to contain, causing a catastrophic rupture. Similarly, the siren's song contains fragments of a cosmic truth too potent for mortal minds. In alchemical texts, these beings are likened to the principle of solve et coagula, to dissolve and to bind. The sirens dissolve identity, reason, and reality with their lamentations, but they also bind the listener to the fate of the abyss. To encounter them is to be both unraveled and ensnared, a paradox reflected in the very nature of Dudel, where opposites, heaven and hell, divine and profane, collide in perpetual tension. Interestingly, medieval grimoires hint that the sirens may serve as unwilling intermediaries between mortals and the imprisoned watchers. In some forgotten rites, summoners sought out places where the sirens were said to gather, windswept cliffs, secluded grottos or haunted groves, and performed rituals to extract fragments of the forbidden knowledge they carried. Yet, these rites often ended in tragedy, as the siren's song would inevitably draw the summoner deeper into madness, or erase them from existence entirely. The duality embodied by these beings mirrors humanity's relationship with temptation and sin throughout history. They are not simply antagonists in a celestial drama, they are reflections of the human condition. They represent the part of us that hungers for the unreachable, that craves transcendence, even at the cost of destruction. Their sorrow is as much for themselves as for those they ensnare, as they exist in eternal mourning for the choices that chain them between realms. In modern occult studies, the sirens of Dudel have been reinterpreted through a psychological lens, seen as symbols of the shadow self, the repressed aspects of the psyche that, when ignored, manifest as self-sabotage or inner turmoil. To encounter a siren in meditation or dream work is said to indicate unresolved guilt, unhealed wounds, or dangerous curiosities within the seeker's subconscious. Some practitioners claim that by confronting the siren's song and resisting its pull, one can gain insight into personal or ancestral traumas linked to forbidden knowledge or spiritual transgression. Yet, the risk remains. Ancient warnings state that those who delve too deeply into these mysteries without proper safeguards may become trapped in liminal states of consciousness, their minds fractured and lost to the abyss. Just as Odysseus had to bind himself to the mast to survive the siren's call, modern seekers are advised to anchor themselves through ritual protective wards or meditative grounding before venturing into realms where such beings may dwell. In certain secret societies, the sirens are venerated not as malevolent forces, but as tragic heroines, guardians of cosmic truth, who bear the unbearable weight of humanity's primal sin. Ritualized reenactments, known as Songs of the Abyss, are performed during the equinoxes, where participants chant mournful hymns to honor the sirens' eternal suffering and to symbolically share in their burden. Ultimately, the sirens of Dudel are more than spectral seductresses. They are living allegories of the cost of divine rebellion, of the eternal tension between human longing and divine prohibition. Their presence within the mythos of the Watchers serves as a reminder that every act of defiance, every step toward forbidden knowledge, leaves echoes that ripple across the fabric of reality and across the corridors of the human soul. As the tale of Dudel unfolds further, the sirens stand as mournful witnesses, serenading the abyss with their sorrow, forever reflecting back to us the uncomfortable truth that in the deepest hunger for enlightenment often lies the seed of ruin.
Far beyond the suffocating void of Dudel, hidden within the cryptic folds of ancient apocalyptic texts, there exists mention of another prison, a realm unlike the chasm of eternal sorrow that swallowed Azazel and his kin. This second place of confinement is known as the domain of the seven stars, a prison suspended in the celestial spheres where seven eternal flames burn with light that neither warms nor blinds. Here, another cadre of rebellious angels, separate from those bound to Dudel, were cast into isolation, locked away not for eternity, but for 10 millennia. This prison, though lesser known, is no less terrifying, and the circumstances of its creation echo across forbidden scriptures and esoteric lore. The earliest references to this enigmatic realm appear in the Book of Enoch, and later in fragments of the Book of Jubilees, both of which describe a mysterious prison located beyond the firmament, where fallen angels were chained beneath the seven stars. Some scholars have interpreted this cryptic description as a reference to the Pleiades constellation, long revered in mythologies around the world as a gateway to other realms. But esoteric traditions claim that the true seven stars are hidden, invisible to mortal eyes, burning in a dimensional fold outside the ordered cosmos. Unlike Dudel, a living abyss of anguish, the seven stars are a realm of suspended stasis. The imprisoned angels, encased within crystalline prisons of frozen starlight, do not writhe or curse their captors. Instead, they exist in a state of eternal paralysis, conscious yet unable to speak or move, staring endlessly into the cold void that surrounds them. Their bodies appear as statues, but within their eyes flickers the faint light of suppressed power, embers smothered beneath a mountain of cosmic silence. The imprisonment here is not governed by sentient guardians like the Lamenters or the Threshold Guardian. Rather, the very fabric of the realm itself is the warden. Each of the seven stars functions as an anchor point, generating ethereal chains made of celestial fire, binding the rebellious angels to a single location, an endless plane of obsidian, stretching into darkness.
The 7 flames hover above them, casting no shadows but instead bathing the realm in a soft, otherworldly glow. Some Gnostic writings propose that the 7 stars are fragments of the primordial light, the divine spark shattered during the creation of the physical universe. These fragments, too volatile to remain in the world, were hidden away by the archangels, weaponized as a prison to contain those angels whose crimes, though grave, did not merit the endless torment of Dudal. The punishment here is not agony, but the erosion of identity over time, as the brilliance of the 7 stars bleaches away memory, ambition, and the will to rebel. In certain Hermetic traditions, the 7 stars are linked to the 7 planetary spheres of classical astrology: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. Each celestial body, corresponding to a divine force or principle, is said to project an aspect of its influence into this prison. Saturn brings isolation, Jupiter imposes cosmic judgment, Mars seals them in stasis, and so forth. Together, they ensure that the angels imprisoned beneath them are forever trapped within a web of divine intention, unable to act upon the mortal world. Yet, legends persist that this imprisonment was not designed to be eternal. The Book of Enoch hints that after 10,000 years, these angels would be summoned once more for final judgment. But whether this prophecy speaks to their eventual release, annihilation, or transformation remains unknown. Occultists speculate that their return could mark a pivotal shift in cosmic balance, a resurgence of forbidden knowledge, or a new celestial war that would tear the veil between heaven and earth. Throughout history, the motif of celestial prisons and their 7-fold seals has bled into other mythologies. The Chaldean oracles speak of 7 flames that bind the archons, while Babylonian texts reference the watchers of the 7 gates, who stand guard over the passages to the stars. Even in the Book of Revelation, the 7 stars are mentioned as being held in the hand of Christ, symbolizing dominion over the angels of the 7 churches, though esoteric readings suggest a hidden connection to the binding of rebellious spirits. Certain fringe occultists believe that the realm of the 7 stars is accessible through astral projection or advanced magical rites. In rare cases, visions reported by mystics describe ascending through spheres of light until reaching a barren plain, where figures frozen in crystalline prisons appear beneath hovering lights that pulse with an otherworldly cadence. These accounts often end with the seer awakening to find cryptic sigils burned into their skin or dreams haunted by spectral voices pleading to be remembered. What sets this prison apart from Dudal is its detachment from human emotion. In Dudal, the watchers suffer in agony, chained by guilt and regret, their minds breaking beneath the abyss's oppressive hunger. But beneath the 7 stars, the angels are trapped within a chilling stillness, unable to scream or weep. Their punishment is to bear witness to the slow decay of their celestial identities, their divine sparks fading with every cycle of the stars. Some traditions whisper of a secretive group of angels who visit the 7 stars periodically, not to free the prisoners, but to ensure that the flames remain steady, and that the chains of light hold firm. These watchers of the watchers are said to bear marks of the stars upon their foreheads, glowing softly beneath their hoods, unseen by mortal eyes. They are the keepers of cosmic equilibrium, ensuring that the rebellious angels remain trapped until the prophesied reckoning. And yet, there are unsettling tales of fluctuation, periods when one of the 7 stars briefly dims, leaving cracks in the fabric of the prison. During these rare cosmic anomalies, strange phenomena plague the mortal world. Dreams filled with visions of ancient angelic cities, submerged beneath seas of starlight, sudden appearances of celestial anomalies in the night sky, and inexplicable bursts of knowledge or madness in mystics and prophets across the globe. It is whispered that these anomalies are signs of the prisoners stirring, their wills pressing against the ancient seals, seeking once more to influence the material world. Some believe that the sirens of Dudal are sensitive to these shifts, their mournful songs intensifying as the stars above waver, as if warning humanity of dangers long forgotten. Whether the 7 stars serve as a safeguard, or a ticking clock counting down to a new cosmic upheaval, one fact remains chillingly clear: their flames still burn, hidden beyond time, sealed away from the eyes of angels and mortals alike. The 7 stars wait, suspended in the cold void between dimensions, and within their light, the imprisoned angels dream of freedom, not with rage or sorrow, but with the hollow, patient hunger of beings who remember the taste of rebellion and the intoxicating scent of mortal worlds. The stars, as they have always done, watch from afar, and perhaps one day they will fall.
Hidden within fractured scrolls and half-forgotten terms lies a prophecy that has sent tremors through generations of occult scholars and mystics alike. The chilling revelation that the imprisonment beneath the 7 stars is but a temporary sentence, where Dudiel is a pit of eternal anguish. The realm of the 7 stars carries an expiration, a cosmic countdown whispered across the fabric of ancient creation. The Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and fragments of the Book of Giants all contain cryptic allusions to this fate, but none more disturbing than the passages suggesting that after 10,000 years, the gates shall open and the prisoners will rise again. It is said that Enoch, the scribe of heaven, was the first mortal to glimpse the seals that bind these angels, and to hear the words of the prophecy from the lips of the archangel Uriel. Described as the reckoning of the stars, this grim foretelling outlines the eventual weakening of the celestial flames. The stars, though unyielding for millennia, will flicker and dim at an appointed time, allowing the imprisoned angels to awaken and reclaim their fragmented power. Yet, the texts are deliberately ambiguous. Do these flames burn as punishment, or do they preserve the captives for some darker purpose, yet unseen? Scholars of apocalyptic literature have long debated the meaning behind the prophecy. Some posit that these fallen angels are destined to return during the time of the end, a concept echoed in the Sibylline oracles and mirrored in Revelation's visions of cosmic upheaval. According to these interpretations, the return of the prisoners will herald an age of terror, a second celestial war where the remnants of the Watchers and their allies shall once again attempt to shatter the barrier between heaven and earth. The Dead Sea Scrolls speak of the sons of darkness, who will rise at the end of days, commanding armies of shadow to challenge the sons of light. Some modern occultists believe these sons of darkness are none other than the released prisoners of the 7 stars, eager to exact vengeance upon the divine order that banished them. But the prophecy also suggests a subtler danger. Locked beneath the 7 stars, these angels have not only stewed in resentment, but have also grown wiser. Trapped in silent contemplation for eons, they may return not as brutish rebels, but as architects of deception, sowing discord through whispered secrets and subtle manipulations. Their knowledge, ancient and untainted by mortal corruption, could become weapons capable of tearing the veils that keep chaos at bay. There are ancient texts that link the prophecy to a celestial alignment, a rare astronomical convergence of stars and planets that could weaken the prison's foundations. Some point to the precession of the equinoxes, others to the great year, the 26,000-year cycle of the Earth's axial wobble. Yet, within some arcane circles, there is growing belief that this cycle has already reached a critical threshold, that the dimming of the 7 stars is no longer a distant future, but an impending calamity. Mysteriously, throughout history, certain astronomers and mystics have recorded inexplicable fluctuations in specific star clusters, including the Pleiades. These records date back to the Chaldean priests of Babylon, who spoke of the daughters of the abyss, stars that pulse with the heartbeat of imprisoned titans. In the 16th century, the occultist and alchemist John Dee wrote of strange observations through his scrying mirror, noting a trembling in the firmament, where 7 fires flicker and the shadow of ancient wings stir in the ether. His writings, dismissed by contemporaries,
have been revisited by modern esoteric researchers as possible references to this prophecy. Further still, whispered traditions from the Middle East speak of a night when the stars shall fall, recalling the cryptic verse in the book of Revelation, "The stars of heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a mighty wind." Some believe this passage describes not meteor showers or celestial events, but the literal descent of these imprisoned beings when their time of punishment ends. The sirens of Dudale, too, are said to wail louder during certain lunar cycles, as if sensing that their distant kin are stirring beneath the seven stars. Occult lore suggests that as the seal weakens, resonant harmonics ripple across dimensions, fracturing fragile mortal minds attuned to the hidden frequencies of the cosmos. Reports of spontaneous prophetic visions, strange celestial anomalies, and mass psychogenic illnesses have been attributed to these shifts, warning of a coming storm on the horizon. In certain forbidden grimoires, such as the fragmented Codex Solomonicus, instructions are said to exist for how to commune with the seven stars. These grimoires claim that cryptic rites could hasten or delay the prisoner's return, but attempting such rituals without absolute mastery would expose the practitioner to forces beyond human comprehension. There are chilling accounts of occultists who have vanished after such attempts, their names and fates lost to history, leaving behind only hastily scrawled diagrams of spiral sigils and charts mapping star alignments. The question that plagues scholars and seekers alike is this: what will these angels be when they return? Will they emerge as wrathful destroyers, or as subtle corruptors? Will they reignite the ancient wars between heaven and earth, or will they manipulate from the shadows, eroding human civilization from within? Their long imprisonment beneath the seven stars has ensured that their motives are shrouded in impenetrable mystery. More troubling is the notion that their release may not be the end, but merely another cycle in an endless cosmic pattern. Some occult cosmologies propose that creation itself is cyclical, an eternal dance of rebellion, punishment, release, and rebirth. If this is true, then the prophecy is not a warning of a singular apocalypse, but of the inevitable repetition of divine tragedy. Certain Kabbalistic interpretations draw parallels to the concept of tikkun olam, or the restoration of a shattered world. Yet, in the dark mirror of this idea, the return of the seven stars prisoners could be the catalyst for further shattering, a descent into a deeper darkness, rather than redemption. There are even those who whisper that the prisoners, once free, will not merely walk the earth again, but will reshape it. Their knowledge, locked away for eons, could unmake the very fabric of reality, twisting the physical world into a reflection of their corrupted will. Some imagine ancient cities rising from beneath the oceans, primeval forests reclaiming modern metropolises, or the laws of nature bending to accommodate the will of once divine beings stripped of grace. Perhaps the most unsettling detail of all is that the prophecy does not state who, or what, will reopen the prison. Will the stars themselves dim as an act of divine will, or will human ambition, ever hungry for forbidden knowledge, be the key to unsealing this ancient prison? As history has shown time and again, humanity's reckless curiosity has a tendency to unearth that which should remain buried. Whatever the truth behind the prophecy, the stars still burn, their faint light watching silently from afar. And somewhere beyond the veil, in a realm untouched by time, the prisoners wait, not asleep, but patient, cold, and eternally watching, ready to reclaim what was once theirs.
Among the scattered fragments of apocryphal texts, heretical scrolls, and the whispered secrets of forgotten cults, a darker and far more disturbing theory persists, a belief that the seven stars themselves are not merely celestial flames or divine chains, but sentient entities ancient beyond comprehension, predating even the rebellion of the Watchers. Some occult traditions claim that these seven stars are not tools of divine justice, but autonomous beings tasked with upholding the precarious balance of the cosmos, silent custodians of an order that predates heaven, hell, and the earth itself. Certain Gnostic sects, particularly those aligned with the Sethian tradition,
speak of 7 primordial aeons, beings of vast intelligence and unfathomable power, who existed before the demiurge, before the formation of material reality. These aeons, driven by a singular mandate to preserve the fragile equilibrium between creation and chaos, are said to have manifested themselves as the 7 stars, embedding their essence into the celestial firmament. According to this belief, they are not passive watchers, but active enforcers of cosmic law, holding in check the tides of destruction that endlessly threaten to erode the veil between dimensions. In some versions of this cosmology, the rebellion of the Watchers was not merely a defiance of divine will, but an act of trespass against the aeons themselves. The Watchers, in their hubris, reached for forbidden knowledge, disturbing the primeval balance guarded by these 7 entities. In retaliation, the 7 stars manifested as prisons, weaving their consciousness into the chains of celestial fire that now bind the rebellious angels beneath their eternal glow. The prison, then, is both physical and metaphysical, a living tomb, where each flickering star is the burning gaze of an ancient sentinel. Other occult traditions, including obscure Hermetic writings from the Corpus Hermeticum, propose that the 7 stars are manifestations of cosmic archetypes, the personifications of principles such as entropy, inertia, recursion, stasis, and other primordial forces. These principles, while necessary to sustain the structural integrity of the universe, are also dangerous when encountered in their raw form. The imprisoned angels, bound within these conceptual frameworks, are not merely kept from escaping, they are absorbed into the very mechanisms that prevent reality from collapsing in upon itself. In this interpretation, the angels' prolonged exposure to the 7 stars' influence has transformed them into something altogether different, no longer celestial rebels, but corrupted echoes of ancient laws. This lends credence to unsettling theories, suggesting that, should they be released, they will return not as beings of wrath or despair, but as carriers of cosmic entropy, dissolving the foundations of existence through their mere presence. Astrologers in antiquity were not blind to the peculiar power of the 7 stars. In Babylonian star lore, the 7 judges of the underworld ruled over the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Their influence extended not only to human fate, but also to the elemental forces governing the rise and fall of empires. Some occult historians speculate that these mythic judges were distorted reflections of the 7 stars, filtered through the lens of human myth-making to make sense of incomprehensible cosmic forces. During the Hellenistic period, Neoplatonists speculated that the fixed stars in the heavens were manifestations of intelligences greater than the gods themselves, unchanging anchors of cosmic order around which even the pantheon of Olympus revolved. Could this ancient belief hint at a veiled awareness of the 7 stars' true nature, misinterpreted as distant lights rather than autonomous sentinels governing the fate of worlds? Further adding to this mystery are the encrypted writings of early Christian mystics, including fragments attributed to Valentinian Gnosticism, which describe the 7 stars as the pillars of the outer darkness, gateways between the corporeal world and the abyss, beyond the abyss. These writings suggest that the 7 stars, if tampered with or weakened, could fracture the seal that isolates our realm from a chaotic pre-existence, unleashing primordial horrors, predating even the angels' rebellion. A chilling clue lies buried within the Zohar, the foundational text of Jewish mysticism, which references 7 supernal beings who tether the worlds to the tree of life. If these beings falter, the divine structure collapses, leading to the so-called Tinsum Ha Acharan, the final contraction, an eschatological event where all creation implodes into singularity. Could this cryptic vision align with the occult fear that the weakening of the seven stars prison signals not only the release of ancient captives, but the unmaking of reality itself? Interestingly, modern astrophysics offers strange parallels. Some researchers have speculated about cosmic structures known as great voids, vast expanses of space with almost no galaxies or matter, acting as dark lacunae in the observable universe. While science remains cautious, esoteric thinkers have drawn unsettling connections, suggesting these voids could be the scars left by battles or interventions involving these ancient entities, remnants of the seven stars' efforts to anchor the chaos beyond the stars. There are those who whisper of secret orders, occult brotherhoods, who worship the seven stars not as prisons but as gods, guardians of the sacred equilibrium. Among their rites are meditations beneath starless skies, and the utterance of forbidden syllables said to resonate with the consciousness of the seven. These adepts believe that by aligning themselves with the will of the seven stars, they can act as agents of cosmic preservation, delaying or hastening the final reckoning as required by the balance. Yet dissenters exist within these hidden circles, believing that the seven stars, once benevolent, have grown cold and indifferent, allowing the prisoners beneath them to mutate into forces beyond control. To these rebels, the seven stars are no longer saviors but jailers who have forgotten mercy, and they seek to shatter the chains and rewrite the laws of the universe. Modern-day sightings further complicate the mystery. Astronomers in recent decades have reported unexplained light fluctuations in deep space, pulses echoing from beyond the galactic rim where no stars should exist. These anomalies, dismissed as instrumentation errors or as yet unknown cosmic phenomena, bear an eerie resemblance to ancient descriptions of the seven stars' flickering glow, signals from the prison shifting ever so slightly, as if the sentinels themselves are stirring. What remains beyond doubt is the potency of the seven stars as a symbol, whether seen as living guardians, sentient archetypes, or ancient gods. They represent a force that transcends human understanding, maintaining a precarious balance between creation and oblivion. Their chains are not merely forged of celestial fire, but of will, consciousness, and the primordial essence that shapes reality itself. And so the seven stars continue to burn, enigmatic and distant, their light casting silent ripples across the fabric of existence. Whether they are benevolent architects or indifferent custodians, their watch persists. Yet the question gnaws at the edge of every occult scholar's mind. When the light dims for the final time, will it signal salvation, annihilation, or the rebirth of a universe forever changed by what lies beneath those cold and ancient flames?
There exists a compelling and provocative counter-narrative, whispered in the shadows of esoteric circles and radical theological discourse. What if the Watchers were not malevolent corrupters of mankind, but reluctant liberators who defied divine tyranny to gift humanity the spark of enlightenment? This dangerous hypothesis challenges the established dogma presented in the Book of Enoch and apocalyptic texts, suggesting instead that these fallen angels were agents of progress, sowing seeds of knowledge that would allow humanity to rise from ignorance and break free from celestial control. To explore this heretical idea, we must first re-examine Azazel, the archetype of rebellion. Traditional narratives paint him as the one who taught mankind the arts of war, weapon forging, and forbidden magic. Yet, from a different vantage point, these very gifts could be perceived as accelerants of civilization itself. Without metallurgy, would humanity have mastered the tools to construct cities, empires, and technologies that define human history? Would the discovery of medicine, agriculture, and the art of the stars have emerged without divine intervention or interference? Ancient Sumerian mythology
tells of the god Enki, who, much like Azazel, bestowed forbidden wisdom upon humanity. Enki taught humankind the arts of irrigation, writing, and healing, directly opposing the will of the god Enlil, who sought to suppress human progress. Some scholars argue that this mythological echo may be an ancestral root of the Watcher's tale, suggesting that ancient cultures may have viewed these celestial figures as benefactors rather than villains. Further support for this idea can be found in the Prometheus myth of Greek tradition. Prometheus, the titan who defied Zeus by stealing fire from the gods and giving it to mortals, is celebrated as a tragic hero, a symbol of resistance against authoritarian control. Yet, Prometheus and Azazel share eerie similarities. Both defied a higher celestial order, both gifted mankind with tools of survival and self-determination, and both were subjected to unspeakable punishments for their defiance. Where Prometheus was chained to a rock to suffer eternally, Azazel was hurled into the abyss of Dudel, his fate sealed by cosmic judgment. The Gnostics, those early Christian heretics branded as dangerous dissenters, further complicate this narrative. In their cosmology, the material world was not crafted by a benevolent god, but by a blind and arrogant demiurge who sought to keep humanity ignorant of the divine spark within. In this framework, beings like the Watchers may not be seen as traitors, but as liberators who defied the demiurge's restrictive laws to awaken latent potential in humankind. It is no coincidence that Gnostic scriptures often speak of archons, celestial rulers, who manipulate humanity into a state of spiritual slumber. Some radical interpretations suggest that the Watchers, by gifting knowledge, rebelled against the archon's dominion, enabling humanity to transcend its imposed limitations and evolve into self-aware, sovereign beings. This concept is not without precedent in other ancient traditions. The ancient Egyptian deity Thoth, god of writing, magic, and wisdom, defied cosmic balance by sharing sacred knowledge with humanity. In some late Egyptian texts, Thoth is punished for revealing too much, much like Azazel and his kin. Yet, Thoth is revered as the architect of civilization, the patron of scribes and scholars, a figure of enlightenment. In more modern interpretations, certain occultists propose that the Watcher's actions were a calculated risk, one that ignited both the brilliance and darkness within human potential. By bestowing forbidden knowledge, they handed humanity the tools to shape its own destiny, free from the suffocating grip of heaven. This duality mirrors the ancient principle of solvet coagula, to dissolve and to bind, representing the tension between chaos and order, ignorance and understanding. There are even those who point to the explosion of human progress during the Neolithic Revolution, a period when agriculture, metallurgy, and the construction of complex societies emerged, seemingly overnight. Was this sudden leap forward in human evolution merely coincidence, or the echo of forbidden knowledge imparted by celestial rebels long ago? Yet, this narrative is fraught with ambiguity. If the Watchers were indeed liberators, why then did humanity spiral into violence, idolatry, and decadence? Did the angels underestimate the corrosive effects of power, untempered by wisdom, or were they willing to gamble on humanity's ability to learn from its mistakes? This raises a darker question: were the Watchers driven by compassion, or by pride, seeing in mankind an opportunity to undermine the dominion of the divine? Another chilling possibility emerges. Perhaps the Watchers were themselves pawns, acting on impulses planted by forces more ancient than heaven or hell. Some esoteric traditions suggest the existence of primordial intelligences, older than the angels themselves, who whisper from the void, manipulating both divine and mortal realms toward unknown ends. One such tradition points to the mysterious Book of Raziel, a medieval grimoire said to contain the secrets taught to Adam by Raziel, the angel of mysteries. Within its encrypted passages are hints that certain knowledge, when passed from heaven to earth, triggers cycles of enlightenment and catastrophe, creation and destruction, with each iteration refining the soul of humanity. Even in contemporary philosophy, echoes of this debate persist. The Promethean impulse, as modern scholars call it, represents humanity's unquenchable thirst to transcend limits, whether imposed by gods, nature, or society. From the pursuit of forbidden sciences to the exploration of the unconscious mind, this drive has defined the human condition, for better or worse. And so the tale of the Watchers becomes more than a simple parable of sin and punishment. It transforms into a meditation on the price of progress. Are we the victims of celestial overreach, or the beneficiaries of an act of cosmic rebellion? Did the Watchers curse us with knowledge, or free us from a prison of divine ignorance? Ultimately, history is shaped by the lens through which it is viewed. To the architects of heaven's order, the Watchers were heretics who disrupted the sacred harmony. To others, they are echoes of the great liberators, tragic figures who bore the burden of enlightenment and paid the ultimate price. And as the stars burn silently above, watching with ancient and indifferent eyes, humanity is left to grapple with the consequences of that forbidden gift, caught between ruin and revelation, fear and freedom, darkness and light.
Beneath the weight of aeons, in a realm untouched by time and beyond the reach of mortal senses, Dudal exists not merely as a pit of punishment, but as a fulcrum upon which the delicate scales of universal order are balanced. In its darkened depths, where even starlight dares not intrude, lies an ancient truth. Dudal is not simply a tomb for rebels, but a living mechanism designed to safeguard the integrity of creation itself. From its inception, this abyss was woven into the fabric of the cosmos as a reminder of the price of defiance and the necessity of cosmic balance. The apocryphal texts, especially the Book of Enoch, describe Dudal with chilling precision, a desolate wasteland of jagged rocks and blistering winds, encircled by burning sulfur and bound by iron mountains. Yet, beyond its physical horrors, Dudal is portrayed as a threshold, a liminal space separating the divine order of the heavens from the chaotic primordial void that existed before creation. To cast a being into Dudal is to consign them not just to suffering, but to entomb them at the very fault line, where reality itself threatens to unravel. In the Zohar, a foundational text of Jewish mysticism, the concept of balance between opposing forces is paramount. The Sephirot, divine emanations of God, each contain a counterpart, ensuring that no single force can dominate the tree of life. Some mystics suggest that Dudal serves a similar role within the celestial architecture, acting as the dark counterpart to the heavenly realms. Just as the divine spheres channel mercy, justice, and wisdom, Dudal channels containment, retribution, and entropy, ensuring that the chaotic currents of rebellion do not flood back into the ordered cosmos. Dudal's purpose, then, is twofold. On the surface, it serves as a prison for the Watchers, a reminder to all celestial beings of the unyielding consequences of hubris and disobedience. Yet, beneath this punitive veneer lies its deeper function, the anchoring of metaphysical laws. The Watchers, in their defiance, became conduits for destabilizing energies, forces that, left unchecked, could erode the spiritual scaffolding of the universe. By casting them into Dudal, the archangels severed the link between these corrupted angels and the material world, locking away not just their forms, but the volatile energies they embodied. Certain Hermetic traditions speak of Dudal as one of the hidden gears of creation, a prison whose existence maintains equilibrium between the realms. Without Dudal, the Whispers say, the celestial hierarchy would crumble, the veil separating the divine from the profane would dissolve,
and creation would fall back into the primordial chaos from which it emerged. This belief is echoed in the cryptic Emerald Tablet, which describes the relationship between that which is above and that which is below, hinting that every act of containment in the heavens echoes across the earth, and vice versa. This interpretation gains unsettling support from historical accounts of those who claim to have glimpsed Dudel in altered states. The 13th century mystic Abraham Abulafia wrote of visions where he stood upon the edge of a blackened chasm, hearing the silent screams of imprisoned watchers as streams of molten silver and ink bled from the abyss, seeping into the foundations of the world. He warned that Dudel was not just a place, but a wound, a scar inflicted upon reality to cauterize the infection of celestial rebellion. In Islamic tradition, a parallel narrative emerges with the concept of Iblis and the Shayatin, jinn-like beings who rebelled against divine command. While Iblis is cast into a realm of exile, the notion of a prison for spirits hidden beneath the earth resonates strongly with the idea of Dudel as an anchor for divine justice. Some Sufi writings allude to subterranean realms, guarded by entities tasked with preserving the balance between light and darkness. Even modern physics, with its exploration of singularities and black holes, echoes this ancient motif. The idea of a region where time and space collapse, where matter is crushed into oblivion, mirrors descriptions of Dudel's timeless void. Could Dudel be understood as a metaphysical black hole, an event horizon beyond which rebellion is trapped, compressed, and forever barred from influencing the universe? Occult scholars have speculated that Dudel is self-sustaining, feeding off the energy of the Watcher's despair. As their celestial essence degrades within its confines, Dudel converts this energy into the very forces that reinforce its indomitable walls. Thus, the prisoners themselves are unwitting participants in the prison's upkeep, their eternal suffering, the very fuel that preserves the cosmic order. Yet, legends warn of the fragility of such constructs. As the memory of the Watchers fades from human consciousness, as fewer remember the names of Azael and Semiyaza, the bonds of Dudel weaken. Kabbalists caution that the strength of cosmic seals depends not only on divine decree, but on collective awareness. Should humanity forget its role as the inheritor of forbidden knowledge, should the ancient covenants be lost to dust and apathy, the very purpose of Dudel may unravel. A chilling parallel emerges in the legend of Tartarus, from Greek mythology, where the Titans, primordial gods who challenge Zeus, are cast into a chthonic abyss. Like Dudel, Tartarus serves as both prison and cosmic bulwark, ensuring that the forces of chaos cannot ascend to the realm of the living. The Greeks too feared what might rise should the gates of Tartarus ever be breached. In recent years, occultists and fringe theorists have drawn unsettling connections between Dudel and seismic hotspots scattered across the globe. Some claim that ancient megalithic sites, such as Göbekli Tepe, or the sunken ruins off the coast of Yonaguni, were constructed as terrestrial echoes of Dudel, built to mirror the celestial mechanisms that maintain order. These structures, aligned with solstices and star patterns, may have served as earthly safeguards, reinforcing the seals that bind the abyss below. Ultimately, Dudel serves as a sobering reminder: balance is not maintained by benevolence alone. In the shadows of creation lurk mechanisms forged in darkness, ancient safeguards designed to imprison rebellion, to contain entropy, to preserve existence itself from slipping into chaos. The prison is not merely a symbol of divine retribution, but of the sacrifices made to uphold the fragile equilibrium between heaven and earth. And yet, as the winds of Dudel howl through forgotten scriptures and whispered prayers, the question remains: how long can balance endure before cracks emerge, and what horrors lie in wait should the abyss be stirred once more?
Across centuries of whispered warnings, scribbled in the margins of forbidden grimoires, and etched onto the crumbling walls of forgotten sanctuaries, there has been one persistent and chilling question: is the seal weakening? And if so, are we standing on the precipice of a calamity older than recorded history? The notion that the chains of Dudeo, or perhaps even more terrifying, the celestial bindings beneath the 7 stars, could fracture, has haunted theologians, mystics, and occultists alike, igniting fears of a resurgence of chaos, destined to reshape not only humanity, but the very fabric of reality. The clues have surfaced in ancient texts, like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of Giants, suggesting that the imprisonment of the fallen angels, particularly the Watchers, was never meant to be eternal for all. The grim passage within the Book of Enoch, which tells of the Watchers' condemnation, also speaks of a future reckoning, a moment when judgment will shift and the abyssal vaults could open, down for 70 generations beneath the valleys of the earth, until the day of judgment, it reads, cryptically framing their exile as a sentence with an expiration. But what if that expiration is drawing near? In the realm of modern esotericism, certain sects argue that humanity itself plays an unwitting role in weakening the ancient seals. As mankind's knowledge deepens, as forbidden technologies pierce the veils once protected by ignorance, the balance once held steady by sacred covenants begins to fray. Could it be that technological leaps, from nuclear fusion to particle accelerators, inadvertently mimic or disturb forces once reserved for the celestial hosts? Reports from the last century have emerged from remote monasteries and secretive esoteric orders, warning of a subtle shift in the resonance of sacred sites. One such claim comes from the guardians of a secluded shrine in the Zagros Mountains, who speak of an audible hum rising from beneath the earth, a vibration that waxes stronger with each passing year. Their elders trace this to a fault line believed to run through one of the ancient sites associated with the Watcher's imprisonment. This hum has coincided with inexplicable seismic anomalies, unseasonal climatic shifts, and even mass disappearances of wildlife. But perhaps the most unsettling sign lies among the stars themselves. Astronomers studying the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, long linked to the 7 stars in esoteric tradition, have recorded irregular fluctuations in their light output, unexplained by standard astrophysics. Despite while mainstream science dismisses this as natural variability, occult scholars fear these are the telltale signs of a dimensional weakening, a cosmic loosening of the ethereal chains binding the ancient rebels below. And the question lingers, what happens if they return? The Watchers, hardened by millennia of torment, could emerge not as angels, nor even as the beings they once were, but as twisted remnants, hybrids of divine power and abyssal corruption. Their knowledge, once shared to spark early human civilization, may now manifest as poisoned wisdom, capable of igniting fresh waves of destruction disguised as enlightenment. Could they return as architects of empire, whispering into the ears of world leaders, or as insidious corruptors of the digital age, subverting minds through the very technologies we rely on? History offers chilling precedents. The sudden collapses of advanced civilizations, Akkad, Harappa, even the unexplained Dark Ages, have in some radical interpretations been linked to the brief partial breaking of seals. In these moments, the whisper of forbidden knowledge may have leaked into the minds of mystics and rulers, triggering cycles of hubris, war and societal collapse. Could we be approaching another such epoch, only this time on a truly global scale? The secretive sect, known as the Order of the 7 Keys, believes that the seals are indeed fracturing, and that global unrest, the rise of extremist ideologies, and even the resurgence of obscure cults are symptoms of this decay. They point to symbols reappearing in unexpected places, ancient sigils of the Watchers etched into modern architecture, corporate logos, and clandestine artwork that eerily mirrors the seals described in apocryphal texts. Meanwhile, deeper currents of prophecy ripple through Jewish Kabbalistic teachings, particularly the darker recesses of the Zohar,
which speak of the final shattering of the Sitra Akra, the other side. Some scholars interpret this as a warning that the containment of chaos is a temporary reprieve, and that as the Qliphoth, the husks of shattered vessels, grow in strength, so too do the powers locked beneath the 7 stars. And then there is the question of the sirens, the cursed women who bore the Nephilim. According to lore, they have always been attuned to the stirrings of the Watcher's prison. Folkloric records from coastal villages in Greece, Sicily, and the Levant report an increase in unexplainable laments emanating from the sea, sounds so potent that they have driven listeners to madness, or lured them to watery graves. Could this signal the nearing convergence of realms, as the curses of Dudiel and the 7 stars entwine once more? Science too may be stumbling unwittingly into this nightmare. Some fringe physicists, exploring the nature of quantum entanglement and higher dimensional space, have speculated that certain experimental thresholds, particularly those involving dark matter or high-energy particles, might unknowingly replicate the gateways described in mythic texts. If so, the interplay between human curiosity and ancient imprisonment may be far more literal than metaphorical. But perhaps the most terrifying possibility is that humanity, blind to the depths of its arrogance, might actively hasten the release of the Watchers, believing them to be misunderstood saviors. Throughout history, desperate cults and secret societies have worshipped the Watchers as gods and heroes, dreaming of the day when their return would break the chains of earthly suffering. Could such groups be working even now to locate and unseal the abyss, hoping to accelerate what they see as an overdue cosmic revolution? The stakes are clear. The Watchers were imprisoned not solely as punishment, but as a safeguard, a firewall against the spread of chaos. Should they rise again, they will not merely return to a world of stone and sword, but to an interconnected globe teetering on the edge of its own hubris. The fusion of their ancient knowledge with modern human technology could give birth to horrors unseen, realities twisted into nightmare realms, where human identity, morality, and even physics are subject to the will of beings older than the stars themselves. The final question, the one that lingers like smoke in the back of every occult scholar's mind, is this: if the seals break, will humanity resist, or will it welcome the return of its dark teachers? The heavens remain silent, the stars burn faintly, but in the shadows beneath, something ancient shifts and waits.
The prison of Dudel looms not just as a bleak monument to divine judgment, but as a question carved into the very stone of human consciousness. Was the punishment of the Watchers a necessary act of cosmic justice, or the silencing of a rebellion meant to catalyze human evolution? This unsettling inquiry echoes through apocryphal scriptures, ancient myths, and whispered debates within esoteric circles. As we peel back the layers of this tale, we uncover a philosophical rift far deeper than any abyss, the tension between obedience to higher powers and the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. According to the canonical texts, the Watchers, led by Semyaza and influenced by the enigmatic Azazel, violated a divine decree. They descended to earth, took human wives, and shared secrets reserved for the celestial realm. In the Book of Enoch, their actions are portrayed as a crime of hubris, a betrayal of sacred trust. Yet, in that same text, buried beneath the overt warnings of punishment, there lingers an undertone of ambiguity. The knowledge they imparted, craftsmanship, herbalism, astronomy, enchantments, was transformative, laying the foundation for early human civilization. Could it be that the Watchers, in stepping beyond their assigned role as passive observers, acted out of compassion rather than rebellion? Some scholars suggest that the Watchers, upon witnessing the fragility of humanity, chose to elevate mankind from its primitive state, believing that enlightenment was worth defying the Creator's edicts. If so, does that make them heretics or martyrs?
The Sumerians spoke of Apkallu, half-divine sages who emerged after the Great Flood to restore wisdom to mankind. In Babylonian lore, figures such as Oannes rose from the sea to impart civilization's earliest arts to humans. These legends mirror the Watcher's tale, hinting that the act of celestial beings gifting knowledge to humanity has long been regarded as a divine intervention, not a transgression. The tension becomes clearer when viewed through the lens of Gnosticism. To the Gnostics, salvation lies not in blind obedience, but in gnosis, knowledge of hidden truths. They argued that the demiurge, a false god or cosmic tyrant, trapped humanity in a material world of ignorance and suffering. By that worldview, the Watchers could be seen as emissaries of higher aeons, working to awaken humanity from its imposed slumber. If so, Dudel is not a prison for criminals, but a cage for those who defied the demiurge's restrictive rule. Yet even within this liberatory interpretation, dangers persist. Knowledge, especially when given without the capacity for wisdom, can lead to ruin. The Nephilim, offspring of the Watchers and human women, are described as giants who wrought devastation upon the earth, driven by violence and unchecked hunger. Was this chaos the inevitable result of premature enlightenment, or the unintended byproduct of a noble act gone awry? History repeats this theme endlessly. Prometheus, who gifted fire to humanity, was bound and tortured, but without his defiance, would humanity have remained in darkness? The serpent in the Garden of Eden, often vilified as the deceiver, offered Adam and Eve the fruit of knowledge, an act that shattered innocence, but also birthed human self-awareness. The philosophical dilemma deepens when one considers the nature of divine will. Does true justice arise from strict obedience to cosmic law, or from the moral courage to defy oppressive limits? Were the Watchers punished for their sins, or for daring to break a cosmic monopoly on knowledge and power? In esoteric circles, particularly among certain Hermeticists and Rosicrucians, there is a recurring theme that humanity's greatest leaps, Renaissance, scientific revolution, even the digital age, have always emerged from flirtations with forbidden knowledge. Each epoch wrestled with moral ambiguity, with discoveries that simultaneously elevated and endangered mankind. From alchemy's transformation into chemistry to the atom's violent unbinding in nuclear power, progress has always borne the shadow of potential catastrophe. And so Dudel's legacy is one of paradox. The abyss is both punishment and a cosmic failsafe. It is a crucible where rebellion is neutralized, yet its very existence may serve as proof of a flawed system that feared the potential for human self-determination. Did the archangels seal away the Watchers for the sake of preserving cosmic harmony, or to maintain a hierarchy where humanity remains subservient to celestial will? Adding further complexity are the Sufi mystics who speak of the hidden treasure that longs to be known. In their view, creation itself is an act of divine curiosity, a yearning for self-awareness. If the divine sought to be known through its creation, then perhaps the Watchers, in teaching humanity the arts of perception and mastery, were fulfilling a deeper cosmic yearning rather than rebelling against it. The ancient Hebrew Kabbalists, too, offer an enigmatic perspective. The concept of Tzimtzum, the divine contraction that made space for creation, suggests that even the Creator stepped back, allowing free will to unfold. Could the Watchers have simply acted within this divine allowance, pushing humanity toward the next stage of its spiritual evolution, even at great personal cost? In modern times, this dilemma manifests in the debates around artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and quantum computing. Should humanity pursue technologies that could irreversibly alter the species, even if it means defying perceived natural or ethical boundaries? The echoes of the Watcher's tale reverberate here. Will we become the new Watchers wielding forbidden knowledge at the risk of triggering another fall? Perhaps the punishment of the Watchers is less about cosmic law and more about the human condition itself, a warning of what happens when enlightenment outpaces wisdom, when power is gained faster than maturity can develop. Dudel's a reminder that there are always costs, both seen and unseen, to those who seek to transcend imposed limits. And yet, Dudel also whispers of the inevitability of defiance. Across cultures and epochs, there remains an unquenchable human thirst for the unknown, for the truths hidden beyond the stars, beneath the earth, and within the soul. Was this thirst planted by the Watchers, or does it predate even them? In the cold silence of the abyss, as the fallen angels contemplate their fate, the question still hangs unanswered. Was their fall a cautionary tale, a cosmic betrayal, or the first spark in humanity's long ascent toward forbidden knowledge? As the stars burn overhead, and the wind howls through Dudel's endless corridors, perhaps the answer lies not in divine judgment, but in the hearts of those who still dare to seek.
The Book of Enoch leaves behind more than a cautionary tale. It offers a riddle that humanity has yet to solve. It speaks to a delicate equilibrium, an eternal tension between the pursuit of knowledge and the preservation of cosmic order. The Watchers, cast down and sealed within the chasms of Dudel and the seven stars, serve as both warning and prophecy. Their fall illustrates the terrifying price of disrupting celestial harmony, yet their gifts to mankind continue to ripple through the fabric of civilization. Their actions planted the seeds of advancement, but also of hubris, setting the stage for an ongoing struggle humanity faces even today. Across the scrolls, through the encoded verses and cryptic warnings, there remains an unsettling refrain. What was once buried may not remain so forever. The Book of Enoch hints at a cycle, an inevitability that echoes like a distant drumbeat through time. Bound for 70 generations, the text repeats, implying that the seals may weaken, the ancient locks corrode, and the imprisoned rise once more to influence the mortal plane. Whether this would signal a descent into chaos or a new dawn for human evolution is a question left hauntingly unanswered. In the shadows of forgotten temples and deep beneath the sands of long-lost civilizations, echoes of the Watchers linger. From the towering megaliths of Baalbek to the enigmatic alignments of Göbekli Tepe, remnants of ancient knowledge hint at a prehistoric past where the celestial and terrestrial once intertwined. Scholars argue over whether these sites were constructed under the guidance of divine architects or by the hands of early humans armed with secrets passed down by the fallen angels. What is certain is that the timeline of human achievement has always been punctuated by sudden, inexplicable leaps forward, moments that mirror the forbidden gifts shared by the Watchers in ancient texts. Even now, in the digital age, humanity finds itself facing a new frontier. Artificial intelligence, genetic modification, and technologies that could alter the very structure of reality raise the same questions posed by the Watchers' defiance. Should we unlock the next layer of forbidden knowledge? And if we do, will we have the wisdom to wield it without plunging ourselves into ruin? Or are we, perhaps unknowingly, retracing the steps of celestial beings who once stood at the same crossroads? Contemporary occult traditions continue to draw inspiration from the Watchers' narrative. In the secretive rites of certain esoteric orders, practitioners meditate on the paradox of Dudel, the prison that protects the universe from dissolution, yet imprisons those who dared to push its boundaries. Rituals invoking the symbolism of the Watchers often warn of the thin line between illumination and corruption, between the light of revelation and the abyss of madness, and still, the stars persist. The seven sisters shimmer faintly in the night sky, a cosmic reminder of the prison that binds the fallen. The Watchers in their celestial tomb beneath the seven stars remain silent, but the very notion that they may one day be released lingers like a whisper on the wind. Some believe that humanity's insatiable curiosity will be the catalyst for their return,
that a final unlocking, intentional or accidental, will draw the imprisoned back into the fold of creation, altering the course of history in ways we cannot fathom. Ancient texts from diverse cultures foreshadow similar warnings. In Hindu lore, the cycles of yugas, ages of creation and destruction, speak to this fragile balance. The Norse myth of Ragnarok describes a catastrophic unbinding of the imprisoned, leading to the death of gods and the rebirth of the world. In every tradition, the theme re-emerges: seals do not last forever, and the knowledge that lies beyond them carries both promise and peril. The Book of Enoch offers no clear resolution, no comforting promise that the abyss will always hold. Instead, it closes like a door left ajar, inviting future generations to ponder the weight of its mysteries. Are we to remain passive observers, hoping the seals endure? Or is humanity's nature such that, like the Watchers, we are destined to step beyond the boundaries imposed upon us, no matter the cost? In this uncertainty lies the heart of the story's enduring power. The Watchers are not simply ancient beings cast from heaven. They are mirrors of our own duality, of the tension between our highest aspirations and deepest fears. They challenge us to ask whether enlightenment without responsibility is merely another form of damnation. And so, as you sit beneath the stars tonight and gaze into the cosmic tapestry stretched above, remember that those same stars have borne witness to this tale since the dawn of time. The fall of the Watchers, the forging of Dudel, and the echoing cries of the imprisoned still reverberate through the universe, waiting for someone or something to stir them once more. Perhaps the seals will hold, perhaps they will not, but one thing is certain: the story is far from over. The shadows between the stars grow longer, and in the silence of the void, the Watchers watch still.